Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Friday morning. Well, how about that for a little playoff action last night, huh? The Edmonton Oilers do it. They win 6-3. They are going back to the Stanley Cup Finals for the second straight year, and it'll be a rematch with the Florida Panthers, who are there for the third straight year. 2 years ago, they lost to Vegas. Last year, they beat Edmonton. Now Edmonton wants payback. And watching that unfold, I could not help but think about the NBA Finals, where we know the Thunder are in. The Pacers had a chance to punch their ticket last night, and they just didn't show up. Halliburton didn't even get to double figures in scoring. I thought the Knicks brought a ton of energy. You know, they're the desperate team. They're down 3-1. We know all the cliches, and they actually really breathe life in those cliches. The star players have to show up. And despite all the speculation about Cat and his injury and his health and how will he go, and if he does, how will he look? Well, he looked good. He had a really good game. Brunson clearly had a big impact on the game. And I thought they got good minutes out of their bench, which, sometimes Thibodeau doesn't even play the bench, and then sometimes he plays and but they brought it. And, the cliche, the bench guys play better at home and all that. And they had a nice run when they were on the floor. They got some separation there. And given the comebacks we've seen in this series, I can't say that game was over early because we've seen too many big leads wiped out. But watching it, it didn't feel like that was going to happen in this game. The Pacers make their runs because everyone does. The 14-point lead is down to 7 in the second, and the 20-point lead is down to 12. But they were never going to do it, and they didn't. So now we get a Game 6 in Indiana, and maybe the Pacers will go home and take care of business. But, man, to not show up like that, not really battle, I don't get it. Why would you flirt with danger, What if a couple calls go against you and your stars are in foul trouble, or somebody rolls an ankle and just can't waste opportunities. It felt like they served that up. And credit the Knicks. The Knicks took it, right? The Knicks could have wobbled to a 3-point win against a Pacer team playing a D-plus game, and that wouldn't have been it. But I thought the Knicks brought their A game, right? And the Pacers didn't answer the bell, so you get a convincing victory. Now, the Thunder sit there and wait, and in relation to hockey, obviously you want to win the titles, right? And you want what the Lakers had with a three-peat. You want what the Bulls had with a pair of three-peats. Everybody wants the dynasty, the Warriors. Great. But everybody can't have that. So the next thing is, well, how often do you make the conference finals? Can you go 5 times out of 7 like the Jazz, or 6 out of 8 like the Celtics? Can you go to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals? And looking at the Thunder, and we've talked about this, but I want to take a little deeper dive yesterday. I want to run this past David Locke later this morning. Obviously, from an age perspective, it's easy to project the Thunder out 5, 6, 7 years, right? These guys, they're going to be good for a while. But we know it's not just age, right? You got to have luck with the health, and we can't sit here today and predict that. But what we can look at is the money. The last time the Thunder were good, the money broke them up. The threat of the impending luxury tax, and Harlan got traded to Houston. And all the players want to get paid, so it's mostly a team thing, but, the players aren't taking less. So it happens. Now, what about the Thunder? And looking at their salaries, they're set this year, and everybody's back next year. I think it's a couple guys with options. They're all going to be back. In the third year, that's where you actually see the options set in. I think actually it's not so much next year. And there's some players who start to get eligible for extensions. I think they can manage the finances for 3 years, this year and 2 more. But after that, man, a lot of guys are going to hit big money. And how many of them are they going to pay? And then when you choose to pay, do you pay the right guys? Both good basketball decisions and then good luck decisions with injury, because you don't want to pay your guy $50 million and then, Kyrie Irving, oops, you blow out your knee. You can't really control that. So it'll be intriguing. I think the window for the Thunder is actually 3 years because of money, and then we'll see what kind of financial decisions get made. And they got so many draft picks. Maybe they'll hit another young guy and they'll plug him in and have to let somebody go. They'll just keep flying. But I think in 3 years, really hard decisions have to be made with this team. And I can't believe they're going to keep everybody together. That isn't the way it works. It's not the way it's set up to work. Maybe it will work that way, but I don't think so. I don't see that. We'll talk with David Locke about that coming up later this morning. All right, we got some things to get to here out of the gate. And we'll start with Real Salt Lake. RSL is going to play the last place Galaxy, which is weird because they're also the defending MLS Cup champions, but they had a major injury in Ricky Pooch, and and they've just had everything go against them. And so they still don't have a win. Winless in 16 games. I think that's the fourth longest streak in league history, and it's getting close to the longest streak. They get to 20. Look out. So RSL's got to face them Saturday night, but they got a lot of questions here as far as how long is Emeka Eneli hurt, and what kind of moves are they going to make in the summer transfer window? What philosophy is the new ownership operating under? I mean, there are just so many questions. We had Kurt Schmid, the chief soccer officer, on with us yesterday, and we'll replay that conversation. Here he is with PK and I right now on The Zone. Kurt, good morning.
Good morning.
Short straw, Kurt. Why do you have to come on during a 6-game winless streak? This isn't the best of timing. We appreciate your toughness, but come on, this isn't good.
Yeah. No, thanks. Someone's got to do it, and I'm happy to talk to you guys.
So, in your opinion, as the chief soccer officer, what has gone wrong through this 6-game stretch? Because it wasn't going great, but it was going okay, and there were a ton of young guys playing. And this has not been a good month. There's no wins in the month of May. What are the top 2 or 3 problems?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the obvious is the results is what has gone wrong. Those are the things that haven't gone our way. I think, last night's a great example. I think there's lots of moments of good play, good soccer, good spells, and we just haven't put the 90 together, as you highlighted in the last few games, to get all 3 points. And so that's the tough part. But I think the boys are working hard and they're putting together some good football. But at the end of the day, executing in those key moments in both boxes, has been lacking. And I think the last couple games, we've shown a little bit more going forward, and we're able to put a few balls in the back of the net. Got our first set-piece goal last night, but late goals have plagued us.
Going back to last year, certainly, there's a lot of guys coming and going, and now you got new ownership, and the development thing going on and having a lot of winning, and then guys move on. It's not a long time since the Millers have taken over, obviously. But as you look at this as a project, what do you think the philosophy is going to be as far as taking players, develop them, and then maybe they move on and replace them and all that?
Yeah, like you said, it hasn't been a long time, working with the Millers. I think we're still getting to know each other and how we work, how they go about things. And, we're enjoying that process right now. I think I obviously get this question a lot. And I think the answer is maybe not as complicated as people might think, which is just, look, the Millers ownership group, we want the team to be successful. They want the team to be successful. They want to win. They want to put together a team that the community can be proud of. So, in this day and age in the sport, that means sometimes we are going to sell players, but we're going to sell players if we think that is the right thing to do to help the team win, whether that's to put together resources to reinvest in the squad or to utilize kind of maybe excess manpower at certain points. But, it's not something where, the first time we get an offer for a good young player, we're going to let him go because we've written this down on a piece of paper somewhere that we're going to sell young players. So I think, whether it's investing in the roster, investing in veterans, investing in young players, selling young players, it's just the prism that we're looking through things are, what's going to help the club win and be successful and be a team that the community can be proud of.
I think fans are waiting for more goals and assists from Dominic Marchuk. He does create moments, but they don't seem to end up in goals. But there are times he's on the ball and you're like, this guy's dangerous. And then I hear that when he plays for the Polish national team, that he's just awesome. And I've heard that there's actually quite a market for him in Europe. So do you have this feeling like, well, maybe he's just better off there? Do you think he's about to break out here? How do you view his performance?
Dom's a talented player. He's a very talented player. He's been here, less than a year now. And so to some extent, as a young player, there's still a little bit of an adaptation probably still going on, but, it's also a different style of play, a different system this year. And, and we're all adapting to that. The hard part about being an assist guy or a setup guy is someone's got to take the shot and put the ball in the back of the net in order for you to be, quote, productive. And I think he's put a lot of balls in a lot of dangerous spots, and we weren't able to finish it for him. So I think that's really not on him. I think he's also had some moments where his execution, just like the rest of the team, could improve and be a bit better. So as far as the market for him, he's a very talented player. He's going to the European Under-21 Championship. Obviously, players that do well there tend to attract interest of clubs throughout the world and throughout Europe. And if something comes, we'll see. We'll take a look at it and we'll evaluate it. But I think Dom's a very good player that is settling in, I think, well here. I think he created some really good chances last night, especially. He created a great chance in National that was unfortunately a bit offside. He created a good chance in Colorado, maybe our best chance in Colorado that we weren't able to put away. I have a lot of confidence in Dom, and I think the combination with him, Goza, Willie, and Diego has looked good the last couple games.
The margin for winning obviously is very thin, and for a lot of teams and a lot of sports, and so injuries can play a factor. Anelli's got an injury. What's the prognosis on him being able to come back?
They're still working through that, but it's certainly going to be more likely to be longer term in terms of probably a couple months. But nothing set in stone yet, and he's still working through that with the medical staff. But yeah, I mean, look, Emeka's a great player and a fantastic teammate and person and leader, and missing him is going to be tough. But from a squad standpoint, it's always, and this is maybe a cliche that gets overused, but the next man up mentality. And, I felt that that's a position over the last, this season and last season has maybe been one of our deeper positions with him and Brian Ojeda, Nelson Palacio, and Pablo Ruiz, and even, Noah Koliskin, who, because he's playing right back right now, people might forget, but he can also play in that position as well. So, it's the cover's there. He's not he's not replaceable one for one. No one can do exactly what he can do, but I think we've got some depth in that spot to help us ride out his absence and be in a good spot when he comes back.
We haven't seen Diogo Gonzalez recently, and I've heard injury, but I've also heard it's attitude and effort in training, and probably like most coaches, that's one thing that'll just drive him nuts right from the get-go. What is going on with Diogo?
Yeah, look, he obviously had an injury coming out of, I think it was a Portland game, was out for, I think, 10 days out of training, give or take, and came back, was able to kind of step back into training a little bit early this week. And, Pablo expressed his disappointment in sort of I don't know what the right word is, but the level in training, or the engagement in training, and we made the decision to leave back and give him a few more days to get over this and get his legs under him, to get past this injury, and we'll reevaluate when we get back from this road trip coming into the international break.
How amazed are you a kid can graduate high school and score a goal in the same week, basically?
I mean, I don't know if it's amazed, impressed, whatever you want to say. I think Gozo's a really impressive kid, and he's takes a lot. Obviously the talent involved to do what he's doing right now is impressive, but also obvious that you need that level of talent. But the mental fortitude, the maturity, the ability to adapt to new situations, all of that, I think is even more impressive in terms of what he's shown, and not just what he's shown in the last, month or 6 weeks, but what he's shown me in the last, 3-4 years.
More amazed by that, or more amazed by Diego Luna, another young player who is just absolutely lighting it up?
Yeah, I mean, amazed, I guess, would imply some sort of surprise, and I think, I think with both players, like we know their talent, and it's not like, hey, I hope this guy breaks through. If he breaks through, it was just more a matter of when, when Goza would break through, when Diego would be able to take this type of responsibility on his shoulders. Obviously, last year we had maybe one or two bigger players that were carrying the load, and it let him grow a little bit, maybe a little bit I don't know what the right word is, but maybe unfocused on, like he was a little bit, the third man at times. And I think this year, in the absence of some of those players, and the absence of anyone else stepping up, Diego's been fantastic in showing that he's the one that can step up and carry the team in those tough moments. And so that's a huge part of his maturation and his growth as a player. And even though, he's still a young player, he's certainly taking on a leadership role within the team.
So you always get the Miller question, what's it like, and the new owners. And also, you also get the, what are you going to do in the summer transfer window question. I don't want to lose my sportscaster license. So what are you going to do in the summer transfer window? What are the priorities, and what are you thinking?
Yeah, look, we're going to improve the team, and I think it's obvious. I know we've had some defensive issues at times, and I think those are things that we can tighten up, whether that's set pieces or the run of play. But I think the biggest opportunity for us to improve things is going to be in the attack. So we gotta bring in some more help in the attack, some consistency and quality in the final third, and then depending on kind of what that looks like, we'll add pieces in other parts of the field that we think can help the team. We don't have 10 foreign spots open, so we have some foreign spot limitations. There's obviously always the cap and the financial constraints, and then as you mentioned earlier, there's when you talk about discretionary players, whether that's U22s or DPs, you've got ownership constraints within that as well.
There is Kurt Schmid, Chief Soccer Officer for Real Salt Lake. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to the Big 12 meetings in Orlando. Mitch Harper with Mark Harlan, Utah Athletic Director, and BYU basketball coach Kevin Young. That's next. Stay with us. Good morning. DJ and PK proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. Mitch Harper joins us to talk all things BYU. He is on the Cougar beat for the Zone, and he spoke with Mark Harlan, Utah Athletic Director, at the Big 12 meetings in Orlando. Football playoffs, what are they going to look like? There's a lot of that's the biggest topic, but there are a lot of topics in front of the ADs. Here's Mark Harlan with Mitch Harper.
And Mark, just first off, maybe what's kind of the key points? There's so much to unpack and discuss, but the key points that athletic directors are hitting in these meetings this week here in Orlando.
Yeah, very robust agendas for sure. And of course, we're joined at this meeting with our coaches, our women's basketball, men's basketball, and our CEOs. And I think the number one thing we're really discussing is just as the settlement appears to be getting closer to realization, at least that's our assumption, is just planning on how that will all work at our campuses. How can we best implement all the best practices for that? Make sure that our student athletes thrive in that environment in this conference. So I'd say that one is specific. And then with those coaching groups here, there's a lot of different issues surrounding their sports that we're attacking as well.
And with the House settlement pending approval, how well is Utah prepared for revenue sharing and grandfathering of roster spots?
Yeah, we feel very good about where we're at. We've been working on it for well over a year. We've had working groups internally looking at how we're going to distribute revenue. We certainly are going to be at the max at the University of Utah thanks to our great donors, our great administrative support. So we're excited about it. We still have a few tweaks we need to do. We're still learning. Going back to these meetings, it's helpful with that. As far as the most recent tagging of young people that maybe lost their roster spots because of this, we're certainly working with what we put forward in the settlement to do that. It doesn't affect too many athletes at the University of Utah, but those that do, working with our coaches, we plan on hopefully having them back.
Regarding balancing budgets across Olympic sports and revenue generators like football and basketball, what's maybe kind of your honest criteria for prioritization going forward?
Well, I think that obviously you have to make sure you invest in the sports that are generating revenue, because as such, that revenue is spread amongst the entire department. So we need to make sure football and men's basketball in particular are very healthy in this environment so that they can thrive. Again, we've seen it with football over these last few years. Continuing to maintain a sellout is critical for every student athlete in the organization, and certainly with Alex now here at men's basketball, the opportunity to fill up Huntsman Center more profoundly with the work that he's going to put forth is also important. But we also want to make sure that where we can add scholarships, which we will be in multiple other sports, that everyone, I should say, every program is benefiting in some sort of fashion.
And what's some of the plan for the athletic department when it comes to revenue streams that don't come at the expense of fans and donors?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's very important that we look at revenue streams very creatively. But it would be disingenuous for me to say that we're not going to have to continue to look at every possibility, but at the same time keeping pricing so that we can involve everybody. But it would be disingenuous for me to suggest we're not going to look at increases in certain areas, but we're always going to be very smart about it. But at the same time, to your question, new revenue streams are being contemplated, and that's been really fun. We brought in a chief revenue officer, that has really looked at different things, stuff we haven't thought of before. We have a president who's very entrepreneurial, a former, business school dean, and so we work very closely with he and his team and my team to look at all the different things that we haven't contemplated before, and I think we've already seen some real uplift from that.
How much does Brett Yormark in these meetings talk about revenue streams and getting creative for all the different institutions?
Well, he's terrific. I mean, he's so skilled at that. He's such a great, thoughtful business person, and obviously, I think one of the reasons why he got this job a few years ago. So you could say he's a perfect guy for this time. He's already bringing corporate partners that hadn't been contemplated in the conference before. Many of them are here with dynamic new partnerships that will be distributed amongst the schools. So anything that the center can do, i.e. the conference, to assist in these times is just absolutely critical.
Wanted to talk, you brought up Alex is here and caught up with him and excitement for Utah basketball. And I wanted to talk about the Huntsman Center. What's the latest there that you can provide an update on the Huntsman Center?
Well, as far as Alex goes, we're excited that he is here. He's learning. This was probably drinking out of the fire hose a little bit about college athletics, but he's very thoughtful. He's surrounded himself with just a great team of coaches, but also administrative personnel. And so we'll go back to Salt Lake. We'll download on everything. Wade is here too. We'll do the same. And I would say with Alex, he's a quick learner. I think Wes Wilcox, as general manager, is going to be dynamic in terms of navigating this new landscape. We've already seen that with the roster reconstruction. So I think that all of those things are going to really work well in our favor.
To follow up, how important is non-conference scheduling? I know football, it's well documented. ADs have a lot of involvement on that. Men's basketball, are you as involved in that, or is that more Wes and Alex Jensen?
Well, it's a team effort, right? A couple different things going on, right? We're moving back from 20 conference games to 18, so you got 2 more to fill. Plus, they added 32 to games, so we got 3 non-conference games. And because Alex and Wes are new in this process, and also Ralph Chilius, who's on the staff, a great scheduler, we're going to all work together on that. We will be announcing some scheduling here shortly, but the one thing I really appreciate about the staff is they get after it.
What is being done to kind of maximize brand awareness for Utah athletics going forward in this era where revenue's all in the forefront, but just enhancing the brand of Utah?
It's always important. The brand is not just athletics, it's the entire department. There's an incredible central planning process in that and all the work that Andrea and her team do, and also my team. But I think the brand is something that you don't sit back every day and look at. You try to move it forward. Obviously, with our student athletes, the kind of young people we have competing for us, their success both in the community, in the classroom, and of course in competition, add to that brand. We certainly saw that with success of our department, Rose Bowls, ski championships, gymnastics, etc. And that's our obligation, but high integrity is also really important. But right now, the brand of Utah is high. We just got to keep climbing.
Last thing for you, Mark. You served in the College Football Playoff Committee a few years ago, and the College Football Playoff format for 2026 and beyond is a hot topic in all these conference spring meetings across the country. What's your preferred format? I know there's been talks about 5+11 reports out there for the Big 12. What do you prefer?
Well, we're going to get together with our football coaches actually right after this interview, and I want to really listen to what they're thinking about. I am a proponent. My own philosophy is, it should be decided on the field, and I think that when we all different conferences meet, they'll all get back together. The commissioners, there's a lot of conflict out there as we speak today, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a philosophy as one on the field. We'll see. Obviously it's a governance process in that. I'm for the expansion of it. I think that would be really good to have more teams involved in this sport that continues to grow. I have high belief in the committee, not just because I was on it and saw how much work, but I believe there's great people every year on that committee. But I hope where it all ends up, whether it's a straight 16 or or perhaps a 5-11, I think that's the best way to go. But we'll see what our coaches have to say as well.
All right, there's Mitch Harper with Utah Athletic Director Mark Harlan. Now here he is with BYU basketball coach Kevin Young.
Coach, second year doing this. It feels like there's so much change in college sports right now. How big of a conversation was revenue sharing and in these meetings today?
Yeah, huge point of emphasis. I think there's a lot of education that's being communicated to the coaches. It's new to everybody. I feel like I've only been in this for a little over a year, and things have changed dramatically since I first got into it. So I think everyone's trying to just understand what the new standard operating procedures are and kind of go from there.
What can revenue sharing, assuming it goes through and still obviously up in the air with the judge, but what can be the benefits for BYU basketball, maybe cause for concern if that's applicable here?
Man, I think there's a lot that goes into it. I think it's hard to point to one or two specific things. I think where it can help is just kind of unifying a lot of the resources, pouring it into the entire athletic department and letting it kind of get dispersed, how the university sees fit along with the rest of the college landscape. I think there's probably some benefits there to the donors themselves. And in terms of some downsides, I don't know. I think like I said, it's so new. I think we're all learning. That's probably the downside, honestly, having to learn just an entire new operating system, so to speak, how to operate in a cap, which, for me is obviously something I'm used to, but in this area of basketball and sport in general, I think that'll probably be the most challenging part.
Who will handle the cap for your program? Will it be Doug Stewart, or do you kind of still oversee that?
Doug is definitely has his hands in that. We're working with Brian, trying to figure out exactly what our workflow is going to be like. I kind of take more of a CEO role where I'm a little bit more, 30,000-foot view and not as much in the weeds, but trying to understand, what the rules of engagement are and make sure we're operating as such.
The summer practices have already began. Your early impressions of this team and maybe how much farther ahead, if that's, you could say that for year two for your program?
Yeah, it's interesting talking to a lot of the other coaches here at this, and getting their take on summer workouts and stuff. It's interesting because the world I was coming from, you have a short window to get ready for a long season. This you have a long window to get ready for a short season, right? So it's a lot different. So I'm tweaking with some things this summer in terms of, we've already completed 2 of our weeks. Wanted to get AJ in there in terms of getting him in before he went off to some of the USA stuff. So it's been good. I think we're, early days, obviously, into we don't even have everybody there, but the guys that we do have there are working extremely hard. I think we're just on first glance, we're longer, we're more athletic. But again, man, it's hard to say without seeing the whole group in there. But what I will say is, watching Richie and AJ kind of build their chemistry has been exciting.
Non-conference schedule, is that finalized? We saw the Orlando announcement today with it being here. Is it finalized? Is it set?
I think we're close. We're not fully set yet, but we're getting there. I think the fans will be excited about what's to come.
There have been reports of the UConn game and Wisconsin game. Are those get on the books? Are they finalized on your end?
Honestly, I'm not entirely sure what's finalized, truth be told. I know they're working kinks out across the board and want to kind of put an update out when the time's right. So, but what I will say is, like I said, I think the fans will be excited.
Last thing, with the pending House First NCAA 15 player roster, will you dip back in to the portal or go international to maybe fill out those last 2 spots, or bring along 2 of the walk-ons from last year? Like, how do you kind of see rounding out those final couple spots?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of different options. We always keep an eye on the international market. There's some guys that we've targeted there. We'll see if we can work out some things with maybe some guys in that space. Bringing some guys back from last year's on the tail as well. Portal is kind of, we feel like we got what we needed to out of the portal, so that's kind of where our heads are at.
There's Mitch Harper with Kevin Young, the Cougar basketball coach, at the Big 12 meetings in Orlando. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Matt Murschel, our spring football tour, takes us to UCF. And yes, he's at the Big 12 meetings too. We'll talk with him next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Matt Murschel covers UCF, covers the Knights, but in addition to that, he's in Orlando, so that's where the Big 12 meetings are. PK and I talking with him about what UCF looks like with a new coach, who's an old coach, a familiar face, getting recycled, and also some of the big news stories at the Big 12 meetings. Here's Matt Murschel with PK and I on The Zone. Now, usually we do the spring football tour. For multiple reasons. One, college football is a big deal here. Two, we're not talking about the Jazz in the NBA playoffs, right? So we have time to do a little deep dive here, and we're going to spend a lot of time here, transfer portal, who's coming, who's going, and all that. But let's start with a coach, because this is really intriguing. We've been doing this for a long time. We're old guys. We can give you a list of coaches that have gone back to a school where they had success, and they rarely come anywhere near that. And we had to do that because Utah State went back to Gary Anderson, who had 4 good years, built something, won the last WAC title, and then moved on to Wisconsin, Oregon State. When he came back, it didn't work. It fell flat right out of the gate. It just did not work. So what's the logic on bringing Scott Frost back? Is he that good a coach? Did he catch lightning in a bottle last time? Can he catch lightning in a bottle again? Is everybody on board with this?
Yeah, I think there's a good portion of people who are on board on this. I mean, I know the administration is fully behind, bringing Scott back. It was an interesting move for sure, as you mentioned. It's a hit or miss type mentality when it comes to bringing a coach back to a second time. And when Scott was here the first time, he did have that success. He took a winless team in 2015, and next year they won 6 games, and then the year after that they went undefeated and beat Auburn, in the Peach Bowl. So this mentality was, okay, maybe we can bring him back. Maybe, things will have that same sort of success. Scott has grown a lot over the last 8 years. I talked with him several times over the spring. This is something that, there was no other job out there that he really wanted to go for. He was working as a consultant with the LA Rams. He was happy doing that job. He wasn't really even thinking about getting back into coaching at the college level. But, when the UCF job opened up, it became intriguing, and he decided this was the best chance I'm going to have. I'm going to go back, because he did like his experience at UCF. So, Terry Mahajer, the athletic director, sat down and met with him several times and talked about, do you think you can do this? Come back. What do you think? And as the process went along, both sides just realized this seemed like it was going to be a good fit. And so that's why Scott comes back. And now remains to be seen how this transition is going to work. It's like I mentioned, it's been 8 years. A lot has changed in the college landscape, NIL, transfer portal. Now we're getting into rev share. So it's going to be a challenge for him. And he's admitted that. It's been a whirlwind experience already to try to get back to it. Will he have success this year? I'm not sure. But, if something pays off in the next couple of years, I think then, the goodwill that he's gained from the fan base and from the boosters and donors, I think this move could end up paying off.
I'm sure you were in the audience at the time. I listened to what was posted on their website. It sounded like it was a post-spring game analysis, and you guys were asking him, and he wouldn't even name one player in the time that I listened to him. So what about the quarterbacks? What about the running back? And so the thing that caught my eye, besides refusing to name it, because I'm trying to get some information, right? So I'm prepared for the interview, and he didn't name one guy. So, but I'm looking at other stuff to get there, and he said that no quarterback, nothing emerged from the 4 quarterbacks, which was a quote. He was willing to talk about team speed. He thought that was pretty good. So as I look at these quarterbacks, at least 3 with Jackson and Brown and Fancher, I think may have gotten injured in that game. The best I could find is Taven Jackson has had 6 starts for those 2 years at Indiana. I think he had 4 and then 2. And I'm thinking, just from a distance, that he would be the leader as far as who is the starting quarterback to begin the season. What do you see and think?
Yeah, I think he's definitely the front runner going into the fall camp as the possible start of this season. I think everyone would agree on that fact. I think, and Scott and all the coaches really did this, I thought, throughout the spring, is they were very careful about not wanting to promote individual players so much so as but promoting positions and promoting groups of guys. I think that was a very smart ploy in his mind, thinking that with the spring transfer portal, you don't want to put too many guys out there. Maybe that they would all of a sudden get other schools interested in your quarterbacks or interested in some of your other players. I think that was one of the reasons. I think another reason is Scott has said many times he's trying to develop that team atmosphere, and he was really concerned that if they started to put people out front, that maybe people would start to feel like, okay, well, that I don't have a chance, or I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be able to earn a spot, or this is what's going to happen. And so he was very careful of that. So I think in the quarterback room especially, I think Tavon, like I mentioned, is definitely the front runner. But I think Ja'Cory Brown, a guy who was here last year, who had a limited role as a backup, he started, I think, one game. He's going to have an opportunity. I think if he looked decent in spring, if he can kind of maybe push Tavon to try to get a chance to go for that starting role. I think Cam Fancher, who got banged up in the last open practice, hurt his hand. I think he'll be fine going in. He's got a lot of experience. He started a lot of games. But he didn't look very strong in spring, but he still believes that he's got a chance to go after it. So those three guys really, in my mind, are going to be the make that run in the quarterback. I think all three fit well into what they want to do offensively. This is going to be an offense that's going to be similar to what he did, what Scott ran in 2016 and 2017. But, again, there's going to be some aspects of it they're going to have to implement as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how these quarterbacks kind of work out. We got a chance to talk to all four of them, and it was still an interesting move.
Quarterback's got to have somebody to throw the ball to. Kobe Hudson and Jacoby Jones were the top two wide receivers statistically last year, and they're both off to the NFL. Of course, the transfer portal, Marcus Burke comes in from Florida. I guess they held three guys out of the spring stuff you were allowed to watch, and another guy got hurt, Day Farmer, who used to be at West Virginia. Mm-hmm. Can you begin to sort out the wide receivers any better than you can sort out the quarterbacks?
No, actually, that's funny. It seems to be a theme throughout. The wide receiver group is probably the one that has the most interested in watching outside of quarterbacks because, again, there are no really established players. They're younger guys who got a lot of speed, got a lot of athleticism, didn't have a chance to play. They brought in some guys from the transfer portal. Mentioned DJ Black, Marcus Burke, Dwayne Thomas was another guy they brought in. They brought in some guys that they felt like would help them out. And, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but no one's really kind of separated themselves at this point of being who's going to be the main target. So, it's a position I think it's going to be fun to watch where guys kind of, end up, kind of shuffling themselves in, especially going into fall camp. They are a very fast group, probably some of the fastest players on the team, and that's good news for whoever's going to be quarterback because they're going to need to have an advantage to go out there and have these guys make plays. And so, to me, I think it's the one guy. I've said this basically on every position group. It's there's a lot of unknowns, but there's a lot of things that make these players, I think, feel like they've got equal opportunities to try to get a shot to get a starting spot because there isn't that maybe definitive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 setup when it comes to the roster.
One of the things about the Big 12 last year, as we had both BYU and Utah into it, so we have transitioned away from the Pac-12, obviously, that I thought it was the year of the running back. The running back was very dominant, and you were covering one last year with R.J. Harvey. I believe he got drafted, second-round Broncos, something like that. So you look at their running backs. You got Stacey Gage. I think he's back. You never know if it's transfer portal because you got to stay on it every day. But I'm intrigued by this Jaden Nixon. Over 900 yards at Western Michigan. His first couple years was at Oklahoma State. Not to say that they're going to be another Harvey, but it looks like they may have some talent there.
Yeah, I think that's another position. Again, young, athletic. They've had some veterans going in. Miles Montgomery was a backup last year to R.J. Harvey. When you have a guy who rushes for over 1,500 yards, Miles didn't get a lot of carries, but he was kind of time came in to spot, Harvey to kind of give him a little breather here and there. I think he's going to be huge. I think Jaden comes in, a lot of speed, a lot of, he can really mix things up. I think, those two guys, Miles and Jaden, are probably going to be the 1-2 punch, going out the running back position. I think, Stacey Gage, as you mentioned, is a young guy who's been on the roster but hasn't really had a chance to kind of go out and perform. He's going to get an opportunity. They've got a couple of younger guys, and Taven Swint coming in, and they feel like he can come in and make some moves as a freshman. So this is a group right now that I think is going to be very interesting. It's going to be different. I'm not a big believer that they're going to rely on one guy to carry the load of the carries of the running back group. I think what's going to happen is this is going to be a running back by committee type approach. I think you're going to have 2 or 3 guys definitely rotating in and out, getting equal numbers of carries. That's kind of what Scott Frost did in the past. He only had one 1,000-yard rusher and coaching both at UCF and at Nebraska. So he's not a guy that's going to, put a load on one guy. I think he's going to have a lot of different athletes out there to try to see what they can do, whether it's, running, catching the ball, blocking, whatever they need. So I think all 3 of those guys, Miles, Jaden, and Stacey, are going to have great opportunities to pull forward and make some plays and kind of make this offense exciting.
We're joined right now by Matt Murschel, UCF Knights beat and college football writer for the Orlando Sentinel. Defensively, the top 7 tacklers all had eligibility. Did they get through the transfer portal unscathed there? And does the new coaching staff value these guys, or do they want a new set of guys? How much turnovers are going to be there?
No, I think defensively, this team is going to find itself. That's where they're really going to, I think, stand out. I mean, I think this is a group that has an opportunity. They've got some guys who come back who've been around there. Nigel Kelly was one on the defensive end. Malachi Lawrence is another guy that they really liked. John Walker was hurt last year, but he's a standout. They think he's going to be there. I think defensively, this is a group it's really going to have their opportunities to be the best part of this team, especially early on as the offense tries to build up and tries to do what it needs to do. I think that's what it's going to fall into. So they've got pieces. They did get a couple guys that left, but honestly, they brought in a lot of talent. Sincere Edwards is a defensive lineman they brought in from Pittsburgh. He's a local kid. He had a really great start at Pittsburgh, but he wanted to come home and be closer to home. They brought in a guy in Horace Lockett Jr. He's going to be nose tackle. He's a guy that, the coaching staff been really high on. I feel like he could step right in that nose tackle position. So they feel like defensive line is going to be solid. The linebacker group has been rebuilt from scratch. I mean, they really didn't have anyone coming back at all. So, they had to bring in a bunch of transfers on that front. They brought in guys with experience they feel like can step in and be, immediate contributors. And the secondary, they just kept adding pieces and depth and kind of mixing in with some younger players. So they feel like this defense is really going to be the key to what they're going to end up doing this next year.
Are they going to have media availability for these Big 12 meetings in Orlando?
Yeah, they are. We're going to have some limited media availability. I know we're getting some coaches, some basketball coaches are today. Football is going to be tomorrow. They're going to try to have, like we're talking to Scott Frost tomorrow, separate from everything else. I talked a little bit to Scott last night. He was at a function here in Orlando and talked about how, I think he said they brought in 65 newcomers. And yesterday was the first day they actually sat down and really had a chance to, meet as a full team, and so it's definitely been a process for him. And he mentioned that, just getting everyone together. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, the big thing, obviously, with the playoff and who gets what, is that something you're going to pursue in terms of line questioning?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the biggest questions going into this week were the stuff that's going out everywhere. It's just the House settlement, what's going on with that, what's going to happen to rev share, how are our schools going to be able to handle that? Then you look at the college football playoff, is it going to be 16 teams? We get Brett Yormark on Friday, that's one of the questions is what is your thinking about behind this? I mean, what do you think about what Greg Sankey said the other day? Kind of taking a shot at the Big 12 and the ACC, for talking about doing what's best for the game. I mean, what are those kind of question marks? Because it seems to me right now that no one's on the same page, and it's going to be interesting to see how they can get everyone together. I think it's mid-June, when they're supposed to meet again for the playoff. How are they going to be able to get on the same page? What does the Big 12 believe is what they need to do, and then also what do the other conferences need to do as well?
It seems to me that philosophically, the Big Ten and the SEC, I'm trying to figure out what the SEC's endgame is other than as many playoff berths and as much money as possible, please. Dan, thank you. And not so much on the please. But it does sound like the SEC might be saying, hey, let's have the 5 conference champs and 11 at-large teams. And the Big Ten has floated this, 4 automatic bids for the Big Ten and the SEC, 2 each for the ACC and Big 12, which looks like that's just set up to create more TV product on the championship weekend. So philosophically, do you want to have a regular season to set up championship weekend, to set up a 16-team tournament, or is that too much and it really devalues the regular season? I'd be interested to hear what the league thinks about that and what the commissioner and the ADs think about that when I say the league. And I wonder if there's anybody talking and whispering about that, or if that's just a bunch of unknowns right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone, everything that I've heard and spoken with some people, is, that everything is on the table right now. I think everyone wants to know exactly what, you've got the SEC, which you mentioned, is leaning now more towards, 1 minute was the 4-2-2, the 4-4-2-2-1 model, where they get 4 automatic bids from the SEC and the Big Ten. Well, now all of a sudden it's looking more like maybe the 5, where you can have the, where you can have, the 5 conference champions, and then you can go with, the 11 at large. That seems to be something people are favoring now. So where are they at on all this? I mean, that's the problem is some people want this, some people want that, and what works best for it. The SEC is talking about maybe doing playing games, if they do the 4-4-2-2-1. I mean, and all of a sudden you add more games. There's a possibility, legitimately, guys, that there's a team that could play 18 games if we go down that road. And I mean, is that something that college athletics wants to get to? They really want to be in that spot. And if that's the case, if you're the SEC, I agree with what Greg said the other day about, listen, we don't necessarily need to fight hard. I mean, we're going to get teams in no matter what. It's just how many teams they want to get in and how they want to do it. I mean, everyone else is just saying, listen, we want equal opportunities. If I'm the Big 12, if I'm the ACC, I'm not just going to give up things. I'm just not going to kowtow to the SEC and to the Big Ten. I'm going to make sure I get as much as I can out of this opportunity, whether it's more spots, automatic spots, whether it's a bigger piece of the pie, whatever it needs to be done, even guarantees to the future of college athletics. I think that's something that you have to fight for. And I think that's something that, I want to ask, Brett about is just, how hard, is this fight. You have to make sure that, if you talk about, what's best for college, that's something you have to think about.
I just want when Yormark was battling with the Pac-12, he and Kliakov, the commissioner, used to have one-liners trying to one-up each other, and now I want Yormark to go at Sankey. He's got the quips, so that's all I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, he might, and I mean, I could see that happening. I mean, maybe something like that happens, but I think the thing is fans don't understand that as much, and I mean, they think it's funny and all and everything, but I think at some point everyone's got to get on the same page. I mean, this isn't going to work if everyone's pulling in every other direction, and I mean that's the hard thing. I mean, I think. Is the SEC willing to give a little bit? Is the Big Ten willing to give a little bit to make this work? Maybe, but it has to be presented. I mean, everybody has to be unified on this. And I just think right now it's just a bunch of people, making a bunch of moves and pulling different directions. And I just think that's not going to be good for what they're trying to get accomplished.
When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. #NBA.
Towns lumbers in, hits a right-hand layup and one. Karl Anthony Towns extends the Knicks lead to 11, their largest of the night, and a free throw's coming up. Right wing three, Brunson off the dribble. He got it and one. 4-point play opportunity for Brunson, and the Knicks have an 81-64 lead. Left corner, Anunoby catch and shoot three. Connects over Jarris Walker, and the Knicks have a 20-point lead.
What do you mean? What are you talking about? They played harder than us. It's okay. We played hard, but they played harder. What's your point? I don't get it. That happens in the game, though. That's basketball. You good? You good, bro? You're looking for something, I know. But damn, no. But I'm telling you though. I told you. What else you want me to tell you?
Highlights from the playoffs last night, and then in the postgame, Pascal Siakam back and forth with Indianapolis Star columnist Greg Doyle. Do you miss awkward postgame interviews? You're not there for them like you were when you were beat writers.
I didn't really get the point of that. I listened to it 2 or 3 times. I know it was all over social media, but I really didn't understand it. And you couldn't hear his questions.
That was the problem, yeah. I didn't understand, at what point are you constantly beating up? Sometimes you have a follow-up, but maybe Siakam was frustrated because it really was just not that different.
To me, this was the height of Knick basketball. This is about as well as they could play. I thought they just had...
That was their A-game.
Incredible performance.
Their 2 stars were on, but when their star sat, their bench was in there. They had a nice run with bench guys out there.
Yeah.
It all came together.
All the energy was there. I agree. I think the line of questioning is the Pacers didn't match the energy, which is what essentially was Siakam was saying. And then Doyle was trying to go, well, why not? Basically, that's inexcusable. How can you just say that? You can control effort. But they didn't really elaborate on all that. But I think that was the point.
And I know the Pacers can go back and win at home in Game 6, but weird stuff happens. Why flush away an opportunity to win the series?
Because the Knicks were dominant. To me, it's not about the Pacers. It's about the Knicks.
Yeah, but two things were true. The Knicks, absolute A-game. Absolute A-game. But it's not like Indiana even brought a B game.
Fine. They could have brought whatever. I don't think they were going to win.
That may well be.
I don't care where the game is. You make a big deal out of building. That just doesn't matter to me. These teams have won. Indiana's already won twice in New York. They can win Game 7 if it comes down to that. If the Knicks can win in Indiana, clearly the Pacers can win in New York because they've already done it. But to me, it's about how you play. And I don't know, a setting causes victory. To me, if the Knicks play like this, they're unstoppable. But that's the key. Can they play like this 2 more times? If I'm Oklahoma City, I'm passionately rooting for the Knicks because I want to win a title on the biggest stage. And Indiana is not the biggest stage. New York is the biggest stage.
Go to New York and take it away from the Knicks and break their heart, huh?
Well, just the
More
coming out
watch,
party in terms of what OKC is all about. If you haven't been exposed to it, if the Knicks get in, more people will be exposed to it because they're the Knicks. They're the biggest thing in the biggest city at that time. So yeah, for sure. But I don't have a feeling what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't go on building. Building doesn't work for me. It goes on teams. And if the Knicks play like that, then they can really rock, man. This is the best I've seen them play, and I've watched them a ton in the postseason.
Game 6 in the series tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, Indianapolis. TNT will have the game. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college basketball.
NCAA President Charlie Baker was at the Big 12 spring meetings yesterday and said there is momentum for the NCAA men's basketball tournament to expand to 72 or 76 teams, possibly as soon as next year. Our goal here is to try to get to either yes or no sometime in the next few months because there's a lot of logistical work that would be associated with doing this. If we were to go down this road, you just think about the opening weekends, who has to travel longest. It gets complicated. It doesn't have to get that complicated. There's format changes out there waiting to be done. Just do them. The question is, do you want to watch more than 64 teams play? And I get the whole by percentages.
68.
More than 68 teams play. I get the whole by percentages. Well, it used to be to whatever it was, 25 or 30% of the teams, and we keep adding teams. But do you want to watch those teams? You're just getting further away from number one. That doesn't change.
Well, what's your point?
Do you want to watch those teams? The logistic thing, the whole thing about that, I think they should start the tournament. Just go to 96. That's what you're doing anyway. And you got 24-team regions. In a way, it's awesome for the little guy. There'll be more bids for mid-majors. And when Weber State gets in, or Southern Utah or Utah Tech, instead of being a 16 seed, they'll be a 24. And they can beat a 9 seed. They can't beat a 1 seed. It happened one time, but it can't happen. The tournament would be fine if you want to do that. And still start the thing on Thursday. Stop with the Tuesday, Wednesday games.
That gets under your skin?
They're making that up like that's the argument, and it's like that's stupid.
What's the argument?
We're going to start this on Tuesday after a selection show on Sunday. Play Thursday, Friday, then play Saturday, Sunday. Get it down to Sweet 16 on Monday, Tuesday. Move the Sweet 16 to the weekend. Move the Elite Eight to Monday and Tuesday in prime time. It's fine. You got plenty of dates to play on. That's not complicated. The question is, do you really want to watch anybody after the 68?
And actually, two 16 seeds would be number one. But I have no passion for this. Do whatever you want. I don't care.
DJ and PK.
I like your passion.
#NFL.
If it's the last ride, you would never know. I mean, the way he's talking about football, the way he's talking about working and trying to be even better this year than he was last year. I mean, he's not. It doesn't seem like a guy that it's his last ride. Like he's tired of the job. I mean, he's in here, he's working. I know his body feels good. I think it feels better than even last year before going into last season. Just because I think he's motivated to go out there and have an even better year than he had this last.
Patrick Mahomes on Travis Kelce. Says he doesn't feel like it's his final season.
I was talking about Andy Reid. Body looks good. Honestly, I thought he was talking about Andy Reid right there until the end.
Yeah. This isn't going to be Travis's final season. I get that you don't want to retire your teammate. That goes against the code, but the guy's mid-30s, and the production's been slipping a little bit here. He'll turn 36 in the middle of this season.
So you got Travis Kelce out the door, huh?
There aren't many guys who've been as good as he is at this age. Okay. I don't expect it to hold up. He's not a 1,000-yard receiver anymore. He wasn't this year. He wasn't the year before. He used to crank those things out every year. I think he scored 3 touchdowns this year.
It's not a question of
whether way down.
But that doesn't matter. The question is, how good is he in the team? Does the team win? Who cares about his production if the team... They got to the Super Bowl. Why wouldn't you want him on your team? I don't know the stats. Great, obviously. And as he gets older, but can he still help you win? Is he better than other guys you can get? That's the issue. It's not what stats he puts up.
I think it's getting to the point that he is not better. And maybe he can rally and have one massive career. Maybe he has been battling, untold injuries, and that's the reason he hasn't been producing the same way.
So you use him less, but you use him in the more important moments?
Make him a red zone specialist, and he turns field goals into touchdowns, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, I'm not interested in stats. I'm interested in winning, and they're winning.
Jets quarterback Justin Fields expressing belief that he can be a difference maker at the position. After practice, he told reporters, "I think I can be great. That's been the goal for me my whole life, my whole career. I think the sky's the limit for this team, for this offense, but we do have a long way to go." How often do we see somebody who isn't very good absolutely just take off in the NFL deep in their career? I mean, Baker Mayfield's probably the current example.
Sam Darnold.
You've been watching football a long time, and when he says he can be great, I mean, you want everyone to think that and to push themselves, that's great, but really to be great, to be up there in the top 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks, wherever you want to draw the line?
I think the story here would be a quarterback saying, "Man, I'm pretty average, and I'm just,
right.
I'm gonna try not to screw this
Man,
thing up.
if we could just get to 9-8,
family on 3."
Miami Dolphins are exploring trading tight end Jonnu Smith to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Smith wants a redone contract, and he had some of his best seasons when playing in Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith's offense when they were together in Tennessee and Atlanta. See if the Steelers make that trade. Raiders offensive coordinator Chip Kelly, wide receiver Jacoby Myers, praising quarterback Geno Smith for the early positive impressions he's made. Kelly called Smith a blessing, said he's great. Geno's literally like a singing coach. His football acumen is really off the charts, impressive to be around him. Put him in the Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, rejuvenated category.
Geno Smith?
Yeah.
I think he's already been rejuvenated.
Yeah, he has been. What he did the last couple of years in Seattle after he was on Jay Drew's road to Busville, impressive. Can he get to another level? DJ and PK.
#college football.
Arizona State coach Kenny Dillingham said that going from underdog to favorite status is, quote, uncomfortable. He says it's naturally motivating for people to say you suck, and it's way more difficult for people to say you're good. I'm no one who actually likes the limelight or people telling me I'm good anyway. I'd much rather be the underdog. I want to try to be somebody people count out. So I'd say this is definitely uncomfortable to always get positive praise. I prefer it for it to be all about the players than for me to just try to navigate our players and make sure they stay focused on them, trying to be the best version of themselves. He was speaking on a Zoom call at the Big 12 meetings.
Big 12 meetings.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah, but I get it, man. This is their first taste of success, so you'd be concerned about it. If there's something to worry about, a coach is going to worry about it.
Fact.
And so this is the new thing to worry about because they came out of nowhere. And, he knows what has happened when they were a laughing stock and nobody believed in them and all that stuff. So that's already been discovered. Now, how do you discover it? Well, how do you figure out when you play with success? What's it going to be? We had BYU last year, did the same thing. This time last year, they were talking about how they had their winter workouts and they were 5-7, and it was a bitter taste, blah, 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 and that was carrying them. Well, the same thing for the Cougars. How do you handle success and all that? So I understand it. It's an age-old issue, not necessarily a problem. We'll see if it's a problem in the fall, but it's an issue that everybody who has their first taste of success sees, because I think just not really anybody, but programs can have a good season. Things can come together, especially in football where, you win 6 one-score games. Can you really count on that to have that back-to-back things go your way in that regard? Can you do that 2 years in a row? Well, what you want is not to rely on that. You want to be able to be up by 12 with 3 minutes to go, something along those lines. And so I understand where he's coming from, and that's a great thing about it. It'll all be expressed out on the field before our very own eyes.
The SEC's ratcheting up penalties on schools whose fans storm the field or rush the court. They're doing away with the escalating fine system, and they're now just going to charge people $500,000, $500,000 per incident.
Just make them forfeit the game.
Now you're talking.
If you really want to, if you don't want people to act up in the stadiums, stop selling liquor. But they won't. So here, quit putting Band-Aids on it. You don't want teams to tank? Everybody in the lottery, every freaking 30 teams, they all get the same odds. What's the point of tanking?
TCU coach Sonny Dykes said his staff is working to get ready for their season opener against Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels with a number of knowns. He likened it to TCU's opener with Colorado a couple years ago in Deion Sanders' first game on the Buffs sidelines. Dykes quipped that find themselves in a similar circumstance 2 years apart. Not sure how we pulled that off. It's called bad scheduling.
Well, they didn't pull it off. The other team did.
May this game be as thrilling as that game. That TCU-Colorado game was 45-42 up and down the field.
Is that your blessing?
No. It's a good game. It's entertaining. I'm not going to label it a blessing. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Swinging a high fly ball way back to left field and way out of here.
Riley gets into one to deep left field. That is a no-doubter. Flying high through the sky and gone, and it's 8-0 Braves.
Swinging a long drive to right by Bell. No one's catching this one. Going, gone, goodbye. That'll bring everybody home. Bang, zoom goes Josh Bell.
Highlights from a light day. 5 games in Major League Baseball right there. The Atlanta Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies split in a doubleheader. Chris Sale, 36 years old, becoming the fastest pitcher to reach 2,500 career strikeouts.
I saw him pitch against the Braves last year, for the Braves against the A's. He got lit up. He was gone like the third inning. I'm a curse on pitchers.
You go to see guys and then...
Oh, yeah, Tony Gonsolin, right?
He went 16-1. I was there for the one.
Don't be in the stand. Don't be pitching the day PK's in the stands.
Yeah. I bought, and the Braves tickets were very expensive, but I kept looking. Somebody put them on real close to the game, much cheaper. So we were like in the 6th row. It was a great day. A lot of fun. I told you about the Battery. It's a phenomenal place they got going over there in the Atlanta area.
That's the neighborhood the ballpark is in, and they built it from scratch.
Oh yeah, it's very impressive. So many
one of those real estate deals.
Big time. Yeah, it was as good as I've seen actually. And Sale just got lit up, man. The A's are just pounding them. I think This is not the Chris Sale I expected, but that's baseball. You know, any given game, anything can happen.
Washington beat Seattle, a 7-run 10th inning. They blew that thing open. And the Athletics, who were hanging in there playing 500 ball, this has been a bad stretch for them. They've been getting crushed here. They are 4-17 in the last 21 games. Toronto blew them out 12-zip.
Well, Clemento, I don't know that they're going to do anything.
Clemento.
Yeah. And then you got the Dodgers and Yankees starting a series this weekend in Chavez. Yeah.
How are tickets for that one? Through the roof?
I'm sure they are. Yeah, I'm sure they are. No doubt about it. I mean, obviously you got the two biggest franchises, and you got Aaron Judge just having just an incredible, maybe a once-in-a-lifetime season if he falls through. This
is everything, right? Because you got the two biggest markets, you got two massive brand names, you got both teams in first place, and you got both teams with celebrity stars who are at least living up to the hype, and maybe they're actually even surpassing it. I mean, these guys. Which one of these guys is going to end up the home run king this season?
Yeah, I mean, that's like you two. Who's your first pick? Rory. Who's your first pick? Scheffler. Who's going to win the home run title? Judge and Ohtani.
Judge and Ohtani.
Sort of boring there.
It's kind of boring, but it's going to jack up ticket prices this weekend.
And we got Salt Lake Community playing for the Junior College World Series National Championship.
Nice.
With one caveat.
What's that?
The 115 schools in California don't participate.
49 states bring their best together. And then this one state that's loaded with junior colleges.
I don't think Wyoming has junior college baseball.
48 states. Alaska, Maine, 46 states.
Yeah, literally California has like 115 that play. And Nevada, guess how many they have?
1.
2.
Dang it.
Say Southern Nevada.
Because it used to be 3, right? And then there's one up, like Sparks or someplace that dropped baseball.
Carson.
Not Sparks. Carson. Yes.
I think they still play. That's the capital of Nevada, isn't it?
Carson City. Yep.
Yeah. Over there, I think so. You got Northern California or Nevada and Southern. You don't have to look it up.
I'm looking something else up. Did you see the name of the Fresno State? Fresno State's in the NCAA baseball tournament. You see the name of their shortstop?
Yes. No. What the hell are you talking about?
His name's Lee Trevino. They got Lee Trevino playing shortstop. Legendary golfer name.
Okay.
I thought it was funny. UVU's in the NCAA baseball tournament. They're a 4 seed. They may not stick around long, but see how that works out. They're playing Oregon today. The Bees lost to Tacoma 8-7. First pitch tonight, 8:05. Tony Park's on the call at 7:50 right here on The Zone. DJ and PK.
#RSL.
Going through a difficult time, it reveals a lot of character. And what I see in these guys is this belief in the self that is greater than anyone outside of the group has for our group. And I think they're rallying around the difficult moments, the suffering that we're going through, and still performing away from home at a really, really high level. And again, we're talking the most minute details in the last couple games that decide if we win or we don't. I think it's a really good performance to build on, and with a recovered group, I feel good about the way we're going to approach the Galaxy game.
There's Pablo Mastroeni after giving up the late goal in Austin. That one ended up 1-1. So now they go play the Galaxy, who are the defending champs, and they are also the last place team in the league, 30th out of 30 teams. RSL's already beaten them once. Can they do it again?
I know for myself, in the hard times, I really fold, which I think is indicative of my character. Very low character guy.
Really?
Yeah, I give up so easily. I mean, okay, I can't do this.
And that's why Pablo won't put you in the starting 11 right there.
Well, I wanted to be the number 9. Well, no, actually, I think on their team, I'd like to be the number 12.
Because they play 11 and you want to be over on the bench?
Yeah. That sums up my athletic career.
8:30 start in Carson, California tomorrow night.
My brother-in-law, he played high school baseball, but he really didn't play. He played college soccer. And but he was on the team, and they always had individual photos, and he was tempted to have ask them for the yearbook to have him pictured on the bench, just sitting there.
You got right bench right over here.
Does he want to sit by the head coach right there, or down at the end of the bench just by himself?
Yeah, just sitting there. With a little look, sourpuss look on his face.
What position do you play? I play left bench.
I had another kid who that I had knew growing up here in town. He had a good line. When he got to high school, they just had better players, so he went out for the team a couple years. And he made the team, but he just didn't get much playing time at all. And so then he stopped playing. I asked him, he said, I got tired of playing scorekeeper.
Nice.
It's a good line.
You ever read the book Ball 4 by Jim Bouton?
Ball 4? Oh, man.
He talked
the Seattle Pilots?
He talked
a lot
about
of profanity in that book. You're just this close away from big league you-know-what.
He talked about when he got sent down to the minors when there was still AAA baseball in Hawaii. Sitting in the bullpen in Honolulu, best gig in baseball. Just sitting there. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL.
He and McDavid are the top two scorers, and the centering pass is flipped home by Corey Perry. The setup from McDavid. Perry finishes, and at age 40, Corey Perry has 7 playoff goals, and Edmonton takes a 1-0 lead in Game 5. Blocked by Ekholm. That'll lead to a breakaway for Connor McDavid. He's in, and he scores! Connor McDavid drags it back to his forehand, and Edmonton has regained a 2-goal lead in Game 5.
Oilers scored the first 3 goals, had the commanding lead. Dallas kept getting close, and Edmonton kept pulling away. My timing was terrible. I was channel surfing between that and basketball, and it seemed like I went to hockey 90 seconds after every goal. 6-3 the final. Edmonton wins the game, and they win the series in 5. They're on to the Stanley Cup. Back-to-back years for the Oilers, and a rematch with the Florida Panthers. They beat them last year. Panthers are making their 3rd straight Stanley Cup final appearance. Utah Mammoth knows they re-signed defenseman Nick DeSimone to a 1-year, $800,000 contract. What is trending? Brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, coming up at 8 o'clock. Bill Seals covers the Iowa State Cyclones. For the Cyclone Report, our spring football tour takes us to Iowa State at 9 o'clock. And Larry the Laker. How much does this irritate him? Or does he figure it's just business as usual for these clowns? We'll talk with Larry at 9:30. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Roger Goodell is the most powerful man in sports in America. I think Greg Sankey's number 2. Brett Yormark has got to be as aggressive and sly and underhanded as he possibly can be, trying to find a way to keep your conference as close to those other 2 as you possibly can.
That is why we're seeing BYU be so aggressive financially, because BYU wants to send a message to Yormark, to Phillips, to Sankey, saying we want to be in it. We want to win championships. We'll spin to do it because BYU is a valuable logo. Utah's become a valuable university. Going to a couple Rose Bowls, and their recent success is big. That's why Utah's got to get back into it this year, because there's a chance that all except for a few get excluded if you don't find a way to get your foot in this door and make it a valuable product.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether you're a highfalutin business owner or you're just a person starting out, a mom and pop, I got good news for you. PK's got your back, and he's got your front, too. And most importantly, he's got your wallet. Yeah, here's what you do. You get me, PK. Everybody listens to me. Are you kidding me? They've been listening to me for like 25 years almost. Come on, think about it. And I can sell what you got. I'll endorse it. Here's what you do. You text PK to 57500, and then our sales staff, who's the best in the business, I might add, will take care of the rest. You text PK to 57500, then open the windows of your business, and the money will flow unto you. Next.
It's time for the question of the morning. The money will flow unto you. Question of the morning. Brett Yormark has endorsed the 5-11 playoff format. 5 automatic bids, 11 at large. Isn't it about the best the Big 12 can get? We've seen athletic directors come out echoing this.
Coaches, Mark Harlan's on board.
Mark Harlan is on board, yes.
Mark is on the mark on this one.
Earn it. The old-fashioned way.
Let's get after it. I love that expression.
Get after it.
Get after it. Bring them on. Let's play. Let's go. Take you out in the parking lot. I'll line you up. Forget putting a hand in the dirt. I'll put my hand on the pavement.
Thanks, Irvin.
On a blacktop.
Thanks, Irvin.
I'm ready to ball right now. Get in a stance. Reset! Let's go.
Yak, what were you doing in 2003 and 2004?
I was a junior in high school at Mountain View High School.
We were doing a remote at a golf tournament, and Urban came over to the table and did a segment. He wanted to literally go play Auburn.
Stonebridge we were at.
We were at
Director
Stonebridge,
of golf,
yes.
Clark Garso.
Nice. You and Clark
True
were tight?
story.
Used to be my neighbor.
Oh, okay.
True story. I probably heard that remote because I was listening to you guys in the morning. I was waking up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and PK and I looked at each other like, look at Urban go. Well, Auburn, we'll play him in a parking lot right now.
Yeah, I was ready. I went out in the parking lot. I'd lined the parking lot. Put the cones out there, play ball.
Tony says this is definitely better than the prior proposals, but until they get to a more pro-style playoff bracket, it'll be about the best you can get.
Yeah, I don't know that it's ever going to be achieved, though. You have to have a singular boss, a singular leader, and I don't know that that's ever going to happen. It'd be nice if it happened, but I don't see it.
The answer right now is that is nowhere on the horizon other than in people's dreams.
Right. I think that's the way they need to go, but I just don't think that that's the way it's going to go. There's too much that has to be given up.
The 5 automatic bids and the 11 at large largely, not completely, but largely mimics what happens in NCAA tournaments and other sports. Now, in other sports, every league can get an automatic bid, so that's the difference. Here it'll be, the top 4 leagues, the automatic, what do they call them? I don't know, whatever they're. Power 2, Auto 4, whatever it is. And then some,
call it Power 4 in football.
And then one more. And, it was Boise State last year. Somebody from the group of 5.
Okay.
And then 11 at large. I mean, if this were NCAA baseball, the WAC champ and everybody would be getting, but they're not going to do that. So this is the most wide open, fair thing you can get. And they don't
use the word fair.
The most fair.
There's no such thing. The most fair. It doesn't
the
make
most
any
relatively
sense.
fair.
It's not
and
about
you still have a
fairness.
selection committee grabbing 11
You
teams.
people love fair. Who cares about fair? You say, okay, everybody's happy. It's the most fair. What are you, junior high principal over here?
You love junior high.
Fair.
Why do you drag junior high principals into this?
Because it's my sister. That's what she was for years.
Got it. Okay.
And you want
Now
everybody
makes
to be
sense.
happy. Everybody learns. Everyone's the same. And we treat everybody great. And
Meanwhile, in 7th grade,
here's world over here.
You were in the dumb class over there in the 7th grade, yeah.
I didn't go to junior high, though. That was not.
Was it K through 8 school?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, it was 1st through 8.
Yeah.
So, most fair. I wish I lived in your world sometimes. Fair. This is the best we can do. Everybody's happy, and then we just bring good news, and then we have sad news. We tone it down.
Dial down the energy. I'm not enjoying this.
We got 2 things in this town that's big on image, and one of it's TV.
we got more than 2.
Be real. Who cares about it? It's not about fairness. It's about who they can make money off of.
Do you think that at 16 teams we'll have a lot of playoff games that don't interest you? That, to me, seems to be like the danger of 16. We went to 12, and we had a bunch of blowouts.
See, but you look at that months and years before it's played. I've said this 1 trillion times. You can take the lowest form of athletic competition, and if it is a great game, I'm in. It has nothing to do with the big names.
No, it's not about the big names.
Or the
It's
small
about
names.
It's about the games being competitive or lopsided. That's
you have
literally
no
what it's
idea.
about.
You would have thought Texas would have hammered ASU, and they didn't because Texas is the big name and the other guy's the small name. So it's impossible to predict. My standard, when you ask this question 1 trillion times, the answer will be the same. Let me know the competitive nature of the game. You were with me on New Year's Day, and the Rose Bowl was in the background, and no one was paying attention.
Hey, look, there was a touchdown. And then the conversation continued.
It was a blowout. Who wants, unless you're an Oregon fan or Ohio State fan, and probably just Ohio State, Oregon checked out, you're not going to be interested in the game. But I've had so many people, because they know of my Tempe connection, tell me that was a phenomenal game. As recently as Sunday, somebody said that to me. Ooh, I got a headache there. Got a little dizzy. Yeah, a guy who had no interest in the game in terms of rooting said that was an unbelievable game. That's what draws me in. Unbelievableness. The spectacular level of competition, the unforeseen, the improbable. In the year of the impossible, the improbable.
Thank you, Vin.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's what it's
Staggered
about.
into that one,
Why do
didn't
we
you?
remember that? It was just game 1 of the World Series. Game 1. They're going to have minimum 3 more to go because it was the improbable, a one-legged dude hitting a home run on a full count.
If he did a line drive to right, he probably would have gotten thrown out of first base by 2 or 3 steps.
And it was just game 1. It wasn't Joe Carter with a walk-off, or in like the 60s or late 50s, Bill Mazeroski when they played him in the day. And I wasn't even alive, but
I've seen the video,
yeah.
He hits it at Forbes Field, and he comes around, and he's doing the windmill thing with the arm, and there's people all over the field. The SEC would have fined the Pirates $500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's, at least for me, I don't necessarily turn in to see who wins. I tune in, I should say, to see great competition, irregardless of gender. We've seen it a million times. It's so the Utah a couple years back when they had Peely playing women's basketball, seemed like they had 7 buzzer beaters to win games.
They did. It
was incredible.
It was routinely 5 seconds to go, and you didn't know who was going to win.
Yeah. I was all over it. That's what I want. So I can't tell you what is going to be a blowout or what isn't going to be.
You have an idea how much better some of these top teams are.
And did I think Ohio State was going to blow out Oregon? No.
So you're willing to have a 1 through 16, and there's 1 or 2 good games, and
it's playoffs.
6 or 7 blowouts.
Of course. Who isn't in the playoffs? Not every playoff game is going to be great, memorable for the next 25 years. I understand that. Well, that's what the remote is for. Click. Right? And then you can go down to whatever, and there'll probably be some documentary that'll draw me in. If I see Thurl, that documentary on NC State one more time, I'm going to go nuts.
Yeah.
But yet I still watch it sometimes. See if I check anything. And here comes Thurl walking down, and a couple of guys are fat, and they're making fun of him. You haven't changed, when he's obviously 50 pounds overweight compared to his playing days. And they laugh, and they carry on. Sure, I'm addicted to those documentaries. And I just last night I was flicking around, and they had the thing on the Duke. Was it the men's lacrosse team that got the harassment or sexual assault charges? Is that what it was? And they went through all that, and I didn't stick with it. But during a commercial break, I flicked over and I watched it for a couple of minutes to see what So there's plenty of stuff available. So yeah, I don't think 16 is the panacea where every game is going to be a 1-score game and some nerd is going to kick a field goal to win it.
U-State Iceman Jack Dunbar saying, no, it's all about the money, though. This could be you if you follow Brett's endorsement. See the gift below. And Daffy Duck is swimming in gold coins.
It's never been anything but the money. No, we play just for the fairness. We want to teach young people the value of sportsmanship and what it's like to be on a team and how to compete for something bigger than yourself. Blah, 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 blah. It's about cash. Of course it is. If you haven't, I told you years ago, don't come at me and tell me that these kids aren't getting money. Just because you don't know something doesn't mean it's not true. There's your fairness right there. Why do you do this to me? I wanted to have a nice, pleasant Friday. What is wrong with you?
Oh, there's multiple
You
things.
heretic.
Probably. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. David Locke. Talking draft, talking NBA Finals. How long can the Thunder keep it together?
No, you're talking years, obviously. You're not
Yes.
talking right now. I get you.
And I think the answer is 2 more and then major challenges. And maybe they negotiate those challenges. We'll talk about that with David Locke, DJ and PK. He's coming up at the top of the hour and a spring football tour to Iowa State. Bill Seals joins us at 9 o'clock right here on The Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Tim Reynolds joining us on the program. He writes for the AP.
It's 11 conference champions in the last 7 years, too. 11 out of the 14 have been different. So not only has there been a change in who wins it, there's also a change in the teams that get there. I mean, we've had a new CBA and rule changes within it. The aprons, they changed a lot of things for a lot of teams. It's really tough for teams to get good now from the middle. You've either got to bottom out or you've got to get super lucky or you're stuck in the middle. I think it's great that legitimately 20 of the 30 teams can honestly say we have a chance. The NFL doesn't have that. Major League Baseball doesn't have that. It's great for the league because the league didn't have this for a while. Now we just have new things to complain about. We complained about how boring it was when it was Cleveland Golden State every year. Now we just complain about other stuff.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The artist of the day, Tom Morello, the former Audio Slave and Rage Against the Machine guitarist, turning 61. Brought to you by Live Nation. For all the live concerts and events in 2025, check out livenation.com.
Tommy Morello, I believe, is a Philly guy. He inducted Hall & Oates into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. One of his own.
Okay, trivia time. All right, you just said you have a great example.
Yeah, I'm
what
talking
we were just
about
talking
competition. And competition draws me in. Lopsided, it's why I was only from a curiosity car crash type of thing was into the original Dream Team because we all knew they were going to slaughter everybody, and they did,
Right.
but the game sucked.
Yeah, but as they put so many celebrity personalities
Right, because it was
together.
the first time, right?
Yeah.
But yet last summer, Steph Curry and all that.
Steph Curry had to hit big shots in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
They lose.
Because of the time difference. It's the middle of the afternoon in the summer, and my wife and daughter are sitting there watching because they come in the room. I'm watching it. They get drawn into it. It was competition. If it was a 30-point blowout, well, who cares? And that's what I'm into. And I've got an example. Last night, the games are over, right? The basketball ends. The hockey, they score an open netter, empty netter, I guess they call it, and it was just a few seconds to go. So that's over. All right. Well, I still got an hour before I got to go to bed. What am I? I don't want to talk to anybody. What am I going to do? Right?
Talk to anybody.
That's not who I am. Quiet guy, very shy, understated. And I'm flicking around, and I know the College World Series softball in OKC is on. Well,
did you flip in the? I had terrible timing with the hockey, but it was great with the softball.
Well,
Oklahoma?
No.
Oh.
No. It would have been 9 o'clock.
Oh, it would have been the Oregon UCLA game.
Yeah, and I clicked on, and it was on, and I thought, is this live? Because it's obviously 10 o'clock their time, right? And I did not know. I thought, guess they replay stuff, right? No, I'm not going to act like I'm all things to all people and I'm following the Women's College World Series. Like
no, but I found it for the same reason you did. It channels for commercials.
And then I looked at the scores and saw, no, this is a live game. And I started watching. I used to cover softball a million times growing up in the business, not growing up as a kid, but in my younger days.
But you did high school sports.
And college. Yeah. I've covered NCAA tournaments. You know, and when I worked with Daily Breeze, we had all that stuff there at the highest level, right? And so softball, great, you know, and boom, they got these pitchers in there and they chuck it in there and away you go. And so it's Oregon and
UCLA.
Yeah. And I'm into it. And sure enough, a walk-off home run. It was 2-2, and Jessica Clemens comes up and jacks one to center field. And the young ladies in blue go nuts. And anytime you see Oregon lose, that's a great day.
Nice.
It don't matter what it's in. And to see the dejected fans when they showed them, and to see the UCLA Bruins going nuts, I'm in it. I'm into it because it mattered, man. And they had like little goofy party hats on their heads.
Yes, that's softball.
But they're carrying, so it's fun.
Yeah,
I've always said women's sports are way more fun.
They do the rally hat thing.
Yeah.
And UCLA, because I was watching earlier, they'd had a walk off. They almost got eliminated in the Super Regional, and they walked it off in Game 2 and then won Game 3.
Yeah, a couple years back, the Ute women's team beat them.
They're referring to Bruin Magic.
Yeah.
So more Bruin Magic.
Jessica Clemens goes deep, man.
I brought up Oklahoma because they won on a walk-off homer to dead center field.
Because Patty Grasso, she's a South Bay. She's Torrance. She went to El Camino. Of course, this is where we play the sports, the best in the South Bay area. Look her up. She's a Torrance gal. Brought her magic to Oklahoma. Yeah, don't you think I know that? Of course I know that. And get this, Yak. Jessica Clemens, I looked her up. She's from Salinas. Yeah.
Where are you? I've been in Salinas or Salina.
One day.
Salina or Salinas? Make up your mind.
It's Salinas.
I know. While I was gone, you messed that up, yeah.
I didn't mess it up.
No, I was looking at him.
No, I said Salina, and then it got misinterpreted as Salina.
No, I didn't misinterpret it. I knew exactly. One day up near Salinas, I let him slip away. He's looking for that home, and I hope he finds it. And I'd trade all my tomorrows for one single yesterday. To be holding Bobby's body next to mine. Yeah. Written by Chris Christopherson and sung by Janis Joplin, among others, but she's the most famous, who was a high school classmate of Jimmy Johnson in Baytown, Texas.
Are you done with your random association?
Where I was once offered a job, and I turned it down.
Baytown, Texas.
Yeah, way down. Yeah, one day up near Salinas, Jessica Clemens, a jack to dead center. And that was a great game. That's what I'm into. If you guarantee me a great game, you could have the biggest names ever. Go a couple years back, Michigan and TCU in the final. That game sucked.
Michigan TCU was a semifinal, and it was a great game.
Georgia.
Georgia smoked TCU after that, yeah.
Yeah, I watched.
Michigan and TCU was up by a score and would go down and go up 2, and Michigan would go down and make it a one-score game.
Michigan TCU it was New Year's Eve, wasn't it? And we're down there for the Rose Bowl, and they're having record friggin' rain. And all you could do is just sit in the hotel room. I mean,
just
drenching,
pouring,
and you don't get that there.
No.
And yeah, I was literally inside the entire day.
It's the kind of stuff you get on the East Coast.
Yeah. But and my wife was with me, and we're just sitting there. And
sunny Southern California, yay!
Not that day.
Not that day.
No, it was the second go-around for the Utes, not the first.
Right, yeah. The gloomy Penn State weather.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable amount of rain, and that was a phenomenal game. But then the final was a blowout, even though it was a final. Look at all those Super Bowls that sucked, man. Didn't they build on them year after year, and everybody would say, I just hope it's a good game.
Yeah, through the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been an issue for a long time.
Right. Who wants a blowout? Unless you root for that team, of course. The rest of us, no.
When we come back, David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz. NBA draft, NBA playoffs. How long can the Thunder keep this young group together? We'll talk with him next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. We are joined now by David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz. David, good morning.
I have so many comments about that opening music that you just brought me in with. Like, you guys have become so hip and so in and so, like, on it now. Like, it's impressive. And if PK tries to sing that, I'm getting off.
I'll leave that line alone.
Okay. David James, Patrick Kinahan, a Friday morning. Oh my gosh, my life is complete. I am happy. I get to talk to two of the greats of the business. You know, I was talking with my young Locked On host this week, trying to help them develop into greatness, co-hosted shows. And, you know, I used two great reference points. I used a little Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla, if you really want the truth. And I used DJ and PK as models of brilliance, of greatness, of how one should do a two-person show.
In that example and parable, am I Dr. Drew or Adam Carolla?
And I've been asked in a long time. There's no question. You are Adam Carolla.
Yep, there it is.
That was not difficult.
That's the layup right there.
Yes. That might be the best. Old Love Lines might be the best two-person radio show ever done.
Why did it go away? If it's that good,
I don't know.
making money.
Well, probably because Adam Carolla went and made a bunch of money doing podcasts, which some people have done in their lifetime.
I think he's coming to town here soon.
Oh, is he? He's still rolling around doing all? That'll be fun. Yeah. Oh, Keith does an amazing job with Wise, guys. That's awesome.
I have a basketball question whenever you come up for air.
What's the best single-person show of all time?
Howard Stern, except he's got a whole team of people.
Okay. That's probably a good answer.
Do
you remember
Rush?
Do you remember Rush?
You go Rush.
Yeah, Rush was brilliant. I drove across country in 1992, I think it was, looking for a job in radio, and literally was going to payphones along the way to call the next interview I was doing to try to get a job. So I think it's like 25, 30 days around all the Western United States, and there's no cell phones. I was sleeping in Super 8 motels and listening to Rush Limbaugh every day, and literally learned, I think, how to do talk radio. I mean, I think he might be the greatest talk radio host of all time. From Rush Limbaugh and how he did everything during that span, trying to start my career. The only other one I would go with on this is not what you intended to talk about today.
It really wasn't.
Does anybody remember Phil Henry?
Yes.
That
might
do a
be
bunch of characters himself.
Yeah, I did.
I mean,
that was different. There's a photographer I worked with who was, whenever I was with him, that show was always on. I didn't know who he was. The photographer had to explain to me what was going on.
He was on in L.A. at night. When how do you learn the business? Not that this is supposed to be a David Locke retrospective. But so in the 90s, I used to flip between at night listening to Jim Rome on 690, I think it was at the time, out of Mexico, and Phil Henry on KFI. When I was my college life was pretty exciting. That's what I was doing at night. Listening to those two guys. So anyway, all right. David James, Patrick Kinahan, as I started, one of the great pairs of all time. You're everybody's buddy.
No, stop.
David James, the annoyance, the opinionated, the caustic, the well-researched, the groundbreaking, the news-breaking Patrick Kinahan. What an honor to be on with the two of you.
We are both watching the NBA playoffs, David Locke, with one eye on the Utah Jazz. How do you build something? What does it take to win in this era, these rules, this style of play, these CBA rules? And we've been talking about Oklahoma City. Their starters between the ages of 23 and 27, with the most important guy, 26 years old. They are set up to win for another 5-6 years in basketball terms. But you do have the money out there. And I was looking at the Thunder's salaries and thought, well, they're absolutely set up for next year, without a doubt, right? They could win this year. Could they repeat next year? They'll have the gang together if they choose and if they have health. Now, year 3, there's some players on options. Guys start to become eligible for bigger money, and they can probably handle that. But if they were to try to win 4 in a row, which is outrageous, and I haven't seen it done in my lifetime, it'd be great to see someone chase that. Well, everybody's up for new money in year 4. I don't see how they can keep the group together. Number 1, am I right about that? And number 2, is that just the way the CBA is written, and that's what everybody's dealing with? And maybe with their young draft picks, they can find a way, but this team's going to look different 3 years from now. What do you think?
I don't think you can have long runs because you've got good enough players. In this circumstance, got good enough players. And if there's a message from this playoff that I think will be taken into the offseason and impact roster movement, it is going to be that the top 2 players on Indiana, New York, and Minnesota all make about 60% of the cap, or $85 million. Oklahoma City's even lower just because of where they are in their timetable. They're at $60 million. The idea that you used to put 2 or 3 players together that are all making $50 million, and $100 million of the cap is coming out of the first 2 players, and $130 million is coming out of the top 3, that's over. If there's a message to this playoffs that you're going to take, that's the message. That is over. Those teams, Phoenix, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Denver, it didn't work. And it's not working anymore. You have to have better depth, more players. The league has created an environment where that's what they've built. And the game's changed a little bit, ironically enough, for all the complaining about the game. I think the game means you have to have more talent on the floor, and you can't just be one-dimensional with one player. And so I think we're at a different stage of roster building. And so, yes, at some point this becomes very difficult, but I mean, that's
just the way it is.
The Voldemorts of the NBA are going to be fine.
Okay, so don't have a big – maybe you can have a big 3, but you can't have an expensive 3. That's the lesson. You got to spread the money around to guys 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's tricky. I mean, like Golden State's in real trouble. Like they got $100 million out of their top 2 guys now. Like you really need Jimmy Butler to come in at $20 million in the backstage of his career, not 45, not 50. So I don't know how this. I don't know how it's going to all play out over time. I wonder if we're in an era. I was actually going to kind of do a show next week on Locked on Jazz where I tried to like walk this through, like kind of almost doing if you would think about it like an improv or like a workout session. Like I'm trying to work this out in my head and I can't do it. And I was kind of figuring that would be the way I would do it. That I almost think there's something here which accelerates the timetable of a rebuild now, because the way almost in the NFL, if you can get the quarterback who's cheap before you pay him and you can play all your other positions, then if you can go get a few guys before they get fully paid to be good enough, then you can do like Isaiah Hartenstein. Like the Isaiah Hartenstein contract's super interesting. He's the second highest paid player, if not the highest paid player in Oklahoma City. At $30 million for 2 years, it was probably an overpay, but it was perfect because they knew that in the next 2 years they were fine because they could overpay because none of their other guys were coming up yet, right? And I think there's going to be some of that going on where you get 1 or 2 young players that are ready, and then you add some veterans around them for a lot of money but on very short contracts, and then when your youngsters get paid all the way, you're going to have to rebuild your roster next time.
The things that presses me about OKC, obviously the stars up front and the high pick with Holmgren and all that, but they were able to get a Williams kid at 12, and he's developing himself into an all-star. It's amazing to watch him develop. So they had good drafting, but then also, too, to be able to get guys like a Lou Dort, who's a free agent. And I believe that there's the quality of play in terms of volume is probably as good as it's ever been. And with that in mind, that puts an extra spotlight, emphasis, requirement on your scouting department to make sure you find these guys to be able to flush out your roster and have them be role players who are limited, but what you're asking them to do, they're pretty good at it, and they augment and supplement the stars. So with that in mind, how important is it to be able to scout players to get these types of guys on your roster that can help win you ball games in terms of supporting the stars?
So 100%, there's 5 of them on their roster. That's as big a key as any. And then because they were ahead of the game, they're able to assign them to all reasonable contracts, which allow them to have this depth. So there's Lou Dort, who was 6'4", 245-pound, no position, a Pac-12 freshman of the year, clearly skilled, and nobody in the league was willing to draft him, and they pick him up as a free agent and have turned him into and then he couldn't shoot. He shot like 24% at Arizona State, and as you probably well know, and then now he's shooting 35, 40%. They do have Chip England, who's one of the great shot creators, coaches in the business on their staff. Aaron Wiggins is the other one. Aaron Wiggins was the second to last pick of the second round out of Maryland, 3 years at Maryland, solid player. They saw something. They've turned him into a viable NBA rotation player, and they've signed him for 3 or 4 years at $10 million. Kendrick Williams has been on that team the whole time through the 2 years of losing, and is just a hard energy player that they found a spot for, that had bounced around the league a little bit. Isaiah Joe was cut off the scrap heap by Philadelphia. He was a interesting prospect at Arkansas. He was taking 9 to 10 threes a game in college before anyone ever did that, and there was clearly something there, and Philadelphia let it go, and Oklahoma City grabbed it and turned him into a viable rotation player. And then they drafted the other Jalen Williams early in the second round at Arkansas, and he's got his role, and they all have roles. None of them are perfect, but they're all able to play and give you minutes. And I think the key, as I've talked about a lot, is you're going to have 240 minutes on your roster. You still have to have great players at the top, but you're going to have a complete roster. Denver had about 200 minutes on their roster. They were just hiding 40 minutes a night on non-NBA rotation players. That's 20% of your minutes almost. Well, it doesn't work. Milwaukee was, when I did it to start the year, was like at 185. That's 30% of your minutes. Phoenix was a joke. They just had non-NBA players playing all over the place, and you can't do that anymore. And that's always been a huge premise of mine. Is the first thing you have to be a title contender is have 240 minutes of viable NBA rotation minutes on your roster, and now it's harder to do with the first and second apron, and so you really have to manage this correctly, and that's why everyone thinks this is going to be such a wild offseason of movement, is because every team is reshuffling how they're building their rosters now.
So as much as we
100% PK, right on it. Very Dr. Drew-esque analysis.
Nice. So as much as we want to sit here and talk about these moves and trades and who you draft and all that, did the Timberwolves make an excellent decision? And did Gobert and his agent make an excellent decision? Because isn't he opting out? I think he was at like $43 million next year. No, $46 million next year. And he opted out, but he got 3 years at 35, 36, and 38. With the cap going up by 10% and him going up by down by $10 million, that makes it easier for them to negotiate everything, building out a complete roster, doesn't it?
Yes, and Minnesota also got Mike Conley to take a lower number, and then maybe most importantly, the other one that they did in that is that they did a really good job on, I thought, the key to Karl Anthony Towns trade, which is a little different than people expected, was not that, whether Julius Randle is better than Karl Anthony Towns, but is that that they went to, I'm trying to do the math in my head and it hurts. DiVincenzo's probably giving him 28 minutes and Randle's giving him 32. So they got 60. They went from 32 minutes to 60 minutes
for the same
in that money allocation. Yeah. And if they, Towns is a $50 million a year player, I think. So if they had Towns and Ant, then they would have been upwards of $100 million in their top two players, but instead they're at 85. I mean, the key to New York is that Brunson's their third highest paid player.
You reviewing the draft and guys as far as your assessment of them, and I'm wondering how deep you are as far as that to be able to speak of the possibilities, whether you think there'll be 3 to 4 to 5 guys, maybe only 1 or 2 with the Jazz drafting. Where are you on that stage in terms of your assessments of those guys?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question. I've watched all the guys around 5, a good portion of the guys around 21.
So you're comfortable it's just the 5th pick. You're comfortable to speak on 3 or 4 or 5 guys, as I guess.
Yeah, the only guy I haven't watched probably enough, though I get who he is the center out of Duke.
Yeah.
Malawatch.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we're drafting that at 5 anyway.
Right. Yeah, I don't think that's a possibility. I would be shocked if they did that.
That would be Ainge throwing everybody a curveball.
Yeah, but Ainge wanted Zach Edey supposedly.
Yeah, but I think that they didn't necessarily know the level of Kessler's improvement at that time.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's probably true, and I think right. And you know what, Zach Edey at 10 probably would have been the right pick for that draft. The uniqueness of that draft.
Right. So who's your leading candidate of the guys that you've researched at 5?
So I still think that I would take Ace Bailey if he slid to 5. He's a little shorter than everyone thought.
Right.
He's got some little issues. There's some reasons why Utah might not be the right. Like, he's probably for his career better off. I was listening to Locked on NBA Big Board, and they did a really interesting thing about how Ace Bailey's weaknesses all get highlighted if he ends up in Charlotte and Utah, whereas if he has to fold underneath Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid, he probably has a better developmental path because he takes some bad shots and he's a little, makes some bad decisions. And if he has kind of carte blanche as the best player on the floor at 20 years old, then he's probably going to make more mistakes. So I thought that was interesting. I really like Trey Johnson. I think he scores 20 points a game in the NBA easily. I know I've read all the criticisms about him, and then I watch him, and I don't see any of them match. I know he doesn't come out great on Kevin Pelton and John Hollinger's numbers. That worries me a little bit. He is high volume and doesn't do a lot of other things, but I'm not too watching it. It doesn't bother me. I think you guys probably know VJ Edgecombe better than I do from watching college all year, but I've watched a few of his games. The last one I watched was most interesting to me. It was against Arizona, and he was so quiet. I mean, so quiet, and I was really just kind of like, oh, gosh, come on. And then all of a sudden, with about 7 minutes left in the game, he just asserted himself on the game. And in a manner that was like, he went to the line, I think, 8 times or four times, and then about 8 possessions, and hit a few shots and just open floor plays. And you're like, okay, there it is. And so there, you probably can't do that all night. I would have liked him to do it before they were down 9 with 7-8 minutes left, but you could see it. Jeremiah Fears is interesting. For whatever reason, in my initial watch, the other guys all jumped out to me a lot more than Jeremiah Fears. I watched the Texas-Oklahoma game. He wasn't very good. But he's in complete control of the game. He's a pure point guard, dribbles an awful lot, but is in complete control of the game. His shooting numbers are on par with everyone else, maybe a little off, but not a lot. The only one, I think, VJ Edge comes off the bounce shooting is really much less than everybody else's. I think those are the 4 primary guys. I haven't bought into the Con Knipple at 5 game entirely. I need to go watch his ACC games without the play of without Cooper Flag and see if there's something else there that I've seen. But I do watch these guys very critically. I would say that, my instinct watching them is, why is it not going to work? That's the eye that I watch with, because the fact of the matter is 2 of the top 10 picks aren't going to work, and of the 10 of the next 20 picks aren't going to work.
But I think they don't work because, and I think this is a huge blind spot, even though I want to watch as much video as everybody else. You don't know how hard and how driven guys are going to be to improve their game, and nobody's good enough coming in. Most guys aren't close to good enough coming in. And you need a hint of what they're good at to build on. I get that. But, David, how do you measure that willingness to be all in to improve when you've got so much money you're set for life? And that can take a lot of the drive out of people.
No, and that's right. It's very – and also, how do you know how they're going to react when they're not the best player on the floor anymore? They've been Keontae has been the best player on the floor in every game he ever played until he played his first game for the Utah Jazz. And I would say he's really struggled with that concept. Like that, I think, is his hurdle, is that he hasn't entirely figured out yet, like, what it's going to take what it's going to take for him to be successful is not always 24 points a game. But that's a hard – I mean, he also can probably score 20 points a game, so it's a hard lure to take that away from him.
David, we appreciate the time as always, and today the radio history. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz. Join us every week here on The Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Coming up, 9 o'clock hour. Yak, are we pivoting?
Yeah, we're pivoting.
Pivoting, new plan.
Brett
Yormark, Big 12 commissioner, is going to address the media. There are a lot of topics, so we're going to let him cover them at about 9:15. So whether you're a Ute or Cougar fan, your commissioner addressing the upcoming changes in college sports. That's at 9:15. We'll carry it live right here on The Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
5 and Lowry for 3 and Paul George is a basketball move. That's the only way you could explain that away, that would be a basketball
But that's why I'm saying I think you'd have to have additional value. If Lowry Markkanen doesn't fit into the window, Paul George certainly doesn't fit into the window. He is on the downside of his career. The value in that deal for the Jazz is you're eating that thing, and you need more than moving up 2 spots in the draft. The idea to swap 5 for 3, it's like, no, absolutely not. You wouldn't do that. For 2 spots to eat Paul George's contract, that's crazy. There's no way, because there's no basketball argument, period. There's not.
If you were dead set on you had to get Ace Bailey, I would do 5 and 21 for 3. But no, I'm not taking back Paul George.
Right.
And 3 for 5 and Lowry. I don't think that's valuable enough for where Paul George is right now.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest. And then listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
DJ PK, we were just talking NBA team building with David Locke. The draft, you asked about a couple specific players. Have you started to order them in your mind?
Roughly.
I think they have to trade up to get VJ Edgecombe, is my guess. I don't think he's going to be there at 5.
See, it depends on what happens with Ace Bailey, though.
It does. If Bailey goes at 3 like clockwork, despite whatever reservations people have about him and his size and all that, and it seems like they're growing by the day, if Charlotte's at 4, if they, for whatever reason, don't like VJ Edgecombe, he does fall to you. So I can't guarantee he won't be there. But it just feels like people like him and his value, and whether it's somebody trading up to get him or Bailey's created room for him, it just feels to me like more likely than not he's gone. There's a month for everything to change and interviews and, you know, who knows.
I don't think the Jazz are that hot on Ace Bailey.
Right. You've said that.
So,
but here's the thing.
That's a different story if he falls to him, though.
Do you think that they are alone with that, or do you think people are just generally cooling on Ace Bailey? Certainly the deal with him going to the combine and measuring like he's like 3 inches shorter than advertised.
Yeah. Oh, my guess is, I don't know this, but my guess is that other folks are thinking the same.
The scouts are already onto it, right? They're at so many games. He's so well scouted. A bunch of them are thinking there's no way he's 6'10". Now, there was probably debate about whether he was 6'8.5" or 6'7 3/4 or whatever. You know, when they get that combine number, I don't think the people who are really wired in were buying 6'10", but I don't think they knew exactly what they were buying either.
No, I agree with that. And I think that if he is 6'7.5", what level of effectiveness is his game at that height? Because that changes the equation versus 6'10".
It really does, because there's so many guys in the NBA in that 6'7".
But that doesn't mean necessarily that he can't be effective at that. It just means he would have to play a different level, and the NBA game is night and day compared to the college game.
Yes.
And so what you can do at 6'7" in the college, no, not in the NBA. Probably not. Very few guys can. So how can he adapt in the NBA at his actual height then becomes the question. And, you're dealing with such young pups that somebody will take him. There's no doubt in my mind, obviously. I don't think he would fall big time. But unless they make a move to move up, who's available and what can you can't control necessarily who's available, obviously. And because even if you wanted to move up and somebody says no, I was just reading the other day that there's people who think that Harper is a literal franchise changer.
Mm-hmm.
And that caught my eye, that they think he's that good. A franchise changer, that's a heavy statement. And those guys don't come around very often.
No, but I think that has been part of the magic of this draft, and a lot of it's been sorted out, and people aren't as hyped up on some of the guys as they were a year ago because they've seen them in college for a year.
I think that tends to happen.
I think it does happen. I think that's one of the great things about putting people in college, because what happens when you go to the pros, and Locke always says, the biggest jump is when you go to the pros. Well, there's multiple reasons for that, but one of the easiest ones to understand is that for the first time in your life, you're playing against guys who are 8, 9, 10 years older than you. So much experienced, fully grown, developed. I mean, they've been working with NBA conditioning people for a decade.
Yeah, but so will you after a decade.
You will after a decade, but like when you're a rookie in your second year, they're veteran knowledge. This whole 10 years of experience, 10 years of building their body. I mean, man, that's a massive jump. The thing I like about college is for guys who've either been playing their age group or 1 year up, suddenly they have to play up 2, 3, 4 years. So that's a test in itself. And it's a test that Cooper Flagg passed with flying colors. It didn't matter what 22-year-old, 23-year-old was on the court against that guy. He was the best player on the court.
For sure.
Right? So, but now, okay, you're playing up 3 or 4 years in college for the first time, and the very next year, if you come out and you only do your one and done, now you're playing up 8, 10, 12 years.
Okay, but
that's
huge... So, okay, fine.
And that's why I asked Locke about, as much as it's what I see on video, it's like, how much are you going to improve?
Right, because you'll be 27 one day.
Yes, and SGA is now 26, and he's taking names.
And he's taking names. Starting to get in your prime.
And he couldn't do it at 21. Right?
Very few can.
Which is fine, right?
Yeah.
Find another guy who can't do it at 21, who can at 26, and a fan base will end up thrilled one day.
That's the whole key here.
Yes.
And that's
but
the
this goes
essence
back
of
to what
drafting.
you talk about with Jerry Sloan to point his heart. Nobody knows what's in here. And you're like, my gut instinct, this guy has a chip on his shoulder and really wants it. Someone's going to drive him long after all the money, all the celebrity, all the endorsements, whatever contract, house, car, jewelry you can dream of. But are you still just driven? Because if you're not and somebody
I like
else
the emphasis
is.
on driven. That was impressive.
If not, and somebody else is, you know what you look like? You look like the Cavs in Game 5. I mean, you're good, but you can't keep up. They're driven. The Knicks are driven in a way you are not, at least in Game 5.
And for 2 decades, we had that here with the statues.
Right.
And so, and we can name the guys who didn't have it, but they had it, clearly. For whatever you think of them, they had it. And that's what propelled them to superstardom. And that's what these guys. That's the intrigue of it all, because it isn't even close to a science. It might be the first thing you can get in terms of ramifications from science. It is so hard to figure all that stuff out.
But Ainge has a knack for doing it. And watching the games, Neesmith's an interesting guy. He was a Celtic draft pick. He's in Indiana now. But what did Ainge see in him? He's the 14th pick in the draft. Now, he's a role player, not a star. And when we're talking about Harper, we're talking about, the star possibilities and capabilities. But what is it that Neesmith has that he's 14, middle of the first round? I mean, everybody knows you. Everybody's scouted you. Mm-hmm. But everybody else commits to somebody else, and Ainge commits to this guy. Now, he's a role guy. But you look, and pretty much as he goes the pace, I mean, there's like, I think it's 12 games in a row now. Well, if he's in double figures, they win, and if he's not, they lose.
Halliburton went 12th.
Yeah.
So
and SGA went 11th and all that. So What do they see? Because and these guys are going 11, 12, and 14 and making it. They've got something. They keep getting better. Cooper Flagg's already got a lot. It's obvious. It's on display. You can watch the video and see it. These other guys have a little bit of it, and they have to acquire it.
Most do.
Earn it.
Most do. Yeah. That's the whole point. And that's the essence of what their assignment. And speaking of the management, that's their assignment. And Jay-Z talked about that. Their assignment is to find those guys because they're there. And they're there in varying degrees. I believe they're there in every draft to varying degrees.
Yes. We can go back and look at drafts.
And you have to find those young men to figure out who they are. That's what makes it so intriguing. But there's so much at stake. That's what's incredible. If you miss badly, right? The Suns and Sacramento missing on Doncic. That is massive. Jobs were lost. Franchises set back. Minnesota took many years, over a decade, to overcome Rubio and Johnny Flynn when Curry was there. Mm-hmm. And then we know what happened with Golden State. For all their greatness, they don't do this without Steph Curry. And they got him at 6, right. I believe it was, because the other guys went 4 and 5. So the ramifications, good and bad, can be enormous.
And the Warriors are good and bad because they hit on Klay Thompson, right? And they hit on Draymond Green.
Right.
And they hit on Steph. 3 of their draft picks.
Got them those titles.
But then
they
make
others.
moves and they get high picks later. And they have a chance to try to rebuild on the fly. And those guys, what are they getting out of those guys?
The best you're getting is a mid-level role player in Kuminga, who we're still waiting. It seems like we've been talking about him for 3 years. Man, what would Kuminga? Right. Oh, come on, Kuminga.
Right.
Either you know what or get off the pot here.
But what if the answer is, well, he's really good when Steph's off the court? Well,
that's some games,
that's
though.
great.
But he's not good enough to do that.
I know. But you need him to be good when Curry's on the court. That's the whole point.
I think their worst was, second or third when they drafted Wiseman.
Yes. At least you're getting something from Kuminga.
Yeah.
And we can debate, but Wiseman, yeah.
Absolute 100% bust. And the second pick, or maybe he was the third.
Oops.
Either way, it was awful. And that has massive ramifications. We just had Locke telling us that the Warriors are in a deep hole with the Butler thing and the amount of money that they're going to pay him, combined with the money that they're already paying.
Team around?
Yeah.
They're not. They're going to be limited.
They're going forward, they become the new Suns.
Yeah.
With older guys with huge fat contracts. And they're not good enough.
Massive celebrity, massive name recognition, but they're not going to have enough good players around them. They're not going to have money to go get those good players around them.
That's why I have the faith in Ainge. Although my faith, I'm not struggling with my faith.
No.
I'm not going inactive here.
Okay.
But what I'm doing is
a lot of Jazz fans are, but
how long? That's what I wish they could come out and say. But I know they can't because it would be a bad PR move to say, hey, we got 2 more years of this, people, so get used to it.
I think Ainge told us the truth on that. He spent a lot of time on it. I think he told the truth. He doesn't know how long.
Well, but I think they got an idea.
He's prepared. He does.
You don't know exactly because you never know.
Right. That's what he said.
But, okay, but you have a plan in your mind of how long, when it's go time.
He has multiple plans in his mind.
When is it go time? If that's what I wish they could say. It's go time in 27, 28. All right.
If he has a chance to trade for Garnett, it's go time now. If he drafts Duncan, it's going to take a little while.
Yeah, but that's 2 different things there. That becomes you can no one's going to say, "Wait, you told us 27, 28 and now it's 26, 27. How dare you?" No one's going to say that. It's just how long do we have to endure all the losing?
Okay, so I think that one thing that he can't answer now, but I think that this is something you can put your arms around, so it gives you an idea, is when they talk to San Antonio, do they think they can trade up to 2? Harper doesn't accelerate things the way Cooper Flagg does, but he does accelerate things. And I think the intentional losing ends with Harper, possibly the first year, but certainly the second. The intentional losing. Now, who's around him and how good are you?
Yeah, but if he's a franchise changer, you don't trade him. You don't trade the rights to draft him.
Oh, and I think, and that's the thing. You have to. That's why I started with what happens when they call San Antonio, because the Spurs. If the Spurs decide this about Harper, then they're moving Fox or Castle. I would.
Well, of course, it would be Fox.
Yeah, I would think Fox.
Because you can go with the age there. Now you got 3 young dudes that you can really build around, and that, to me, that's awesome. If I'm San Antonio, and obviously they've got all those titles, so San Antonio fans have no right to complain. And I don't know if they are or they aren't. I don't care. But I would take that for the Jazz, and I would take 2 seasons of development, and I would take a first-round exit because I know the good times are really coming. It's just right now, I don't know when the good times are coming. I cannot estimate it at all. And I think that's the frustration that the hardcore have, and I appreciate the hardcore. I don't bleed with the hardcore, but I love the hardcore. The hardcore are our people, and the hardcore have kept me employed in this dream job for 2 decades. So you better believe I love them. And when I get on at the gym or wherever, and hardcore comes up to me, I try to make time for them because they're our people.
Facts. And they're all facts.
You could be BYU, Utah, wherever. I love the hardcore.
Yep.
And I wish for the hardcore that they could have a better timeline, because then I think they can deal with it easier. And I believe, and I still believe this because I believe in Ainge and I believe in Jay-Z, that I think they'll get this done. I just don't know when. And I can't even guess when. That's my thing. I wish I can guess when, but I can't. But I do believe that they'll get it done.
Well, I think that actions speak louder than words. And I really don't think he knows.
I speak
and
pretty
that's what
loud.
I told you you do. But if they trade Markkanen, who do they trade him for, and how old is that person? And
we'll
your
have a better
timeline.
idea. Yeah. Okay. So maybe in a month or 2, we'll have a better idea.
I think this summer we'll have a better idea. I think the odds are better than not that he gets traded.
And that's what I wish they could say, but I know they can't.
They can't.
Hey, we have a good chance to really expedite this. Come September 1st, you all have a better idea of where we're going. I wish they could say that, but they can't. I get it. They can't. I just wish they could.
Stick around. Listen to a show in July and August. It may suddenly become a lot more obvious to all of us.
May very well be.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone, the commish of the Big 12 addressing the media in the 9 o'clock hour, probably about 9:15. We will carry Brett Yormark right here on The Zone when he steps to the microphone in Orlando. Stay with us.
Accessing.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G.
Roger Goodell is the most powerful man in sports in America. I think Greg Sankey's number 2. Brett Yormark has got to be as aggressive and sly and underhanded as he possibly can be, trying to find a way to keep your conference as close to those other 2 as you possibly can.
That is why we're seeing BYU be so aggressive financially, because BYU wants to send a message to Yormark, to Phillips, to Sankey, saying we want to be in it. We want to win championships. We'll spend to do it because BYU is a valuable logo. Utah's become a valuable university. Going to a couple Rose Bowls, and their recent success is big. That's why Utah's got to get back into it this year, because there's a chance that all except for a few get excluded if you don't find a way to get your foot in this door and make it a valuable product.
Catch Hans and Scotty weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Man, I got great news. This might as well be Christmas Day for what I'm about to say. Okay? I want you to follow the way. Yeah. You got a business. I'm going to make you money, man. It's as simple as that. Hey, you got a business that you're passionate about. Well, who's the most passionate man you know on radio? That'd be me. Of course it is. PK. So all you got to do is get me to endorse your product, and I am willing and able, and I love you, and you love me. Yes. So here's what you do. You text PK to 57500, and our sales staff, which is awesome, will take care of the rest. Text PK to 57500, and let's get you rolling in the deep.
Sing it, Adele.
There's a fire started in my heart, reaching a the pitch. I'm bringing me out the dock.
I now have a new entry.
Add it to the collection, Yuck.
Well, he told me to. He's the captain of the ship. We've always acknowledged that.
Very true.
And he says to do something, I got to do it.
Oh, Captain,
by the
our
way,
captain.
While that was not your best work, that was very good work. I was surprised at the quality of your Adele karaoke.
My best work is yet to come.
That may well be true.
I got another decade at this gig.
The SEC has irritated you, PK. They've put out a statement. And this is basically the stuff Brett Yormark is going to address without saying it specifically.
Oh, go after him, Brett. Get out of town.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. It never happens.
Why not?
Because people don't do that.
No. We had Kliavkov and Yormark going.
That was as good as it gets. They took snippy shots, but they never really made their case and mocked the other league.
I don't know. The SEC puts out this statement, a regular season gauntlet. When looking at the leading metrics that factor in strength of schedule, the conclusion across all of them is clear. No other conference is a regular season as grueling as the SEC's. Well, if it's so grueling, then you don't have to tell me. It stands on its own merit. And they had bad losses last year.
Lots of them. Vanderbilt lost to Georgia State right before they beat Alabama. Arkansas lost to 0-9 Oklahoma State. A team that went 0-9 in the Big 12 beat Arkansas. Should I go on? Right. LSU lost to a super mediocre USC team. Why? Because they traveled. We always say, the SEC never travels. Did they factor that in? They don't leave the Deep South. So they leave the Deep South, they go out to Las Vegas, and what happens? LSU gets beat by USC. And then USC turns around and loses to Maryland.
I don't even think they leave the shallow South.
Maryland, Minnesota.
They're rolling in the Deep South.
Go ahead, Adele. This is college football. So blah, blah, blah. In the SEC, you didn't. If you're that good, you would have had a team win the championship. You didn't. You would have had a team in the title game. You didn't. You had one team in the semis, and they got there by winning an overtime game in the quarters. You literally got one team to scrape into the semis, which is fine. I mean, there are plenty of leagues that aren't in the semis, so that's great. But don't tell us you're the best thing since sliced bread when you had one team scrape into the semis.
Well, I think they are the best conference.
This all
fine.
Changed 2 years ago. And there were lots of people. You were told it. You could go out and read it. You didn't need to have access to a college football head coach or coordinator or athletic director. The SEC had dominated for years, but now that everybody has NIL, they're going to pay the money that they weren't willing to pay before because it was against the rules, and that the SEC was willing to pay before. And they didn't care about the rules. And the gap was going to close, and it was going to close quickly. We read it, we were told it, and we saw it play out on the field. So stop.
Yeah, but I think they feel like they may be losing something. They're trying to hold on to it.
They are, and I agree that. But, you're losing it because you're literally losing. So go out and win.
And
Florida came to Utah and got beat. Come to Utah and win.
I think they will. They're a fine conference.
Well, a lot of stuff is cyclical. So there is the whole, you had Nick Saban also.
Sure, but then
now you don't.
Somebody else will take their place. I mean, they had Urban Meyer.
Right. And then they didn't.
Right.
And he went to Ohio State. And so that
Florida
comes and goes. And
dip.
the thing about the SEC having money is they can go hire, more of those elite coaches.
I think for the Big 12 is keep doing the best you can do. Get these energetic dudes. I mean, they hit gold with Dillingham, it appears.
Mm-hmm.
A young dude, relatable. Get the community jacked about what you're doing.
Share best practices on how to excel. And do that and try to build everybody up.
Invite the media in. Because you invite the media in, the media is just going to and they're going to love you.
And they're getting the door slammed on their fingers other places, and they got to write something, show something on television, talk about something, stream something.
So give access.
Yes.
Have them promote your program, which is for free. You got to win. He won. And do the same thing across the board. Let them in. Don't close them out. Let them in.
Well, it's good that Yormark's talking here.
Exactly.
And then you get this at the Big 12 meetings, and then you'll get another dose of this later with the media days. And you get your name and your brand out there, and you tell your story.
Right.
And who knows who'll take off this year? Maybe it's ASU again. Maybe it's Iowa State. Maybe it's K-State. Maybe it's Texas Tech. Maybe it's one of our local schools.
I think the league needs multiple teams. Because as we expand, they'll get at least 2. And what you need is
how do you get 3?
Conference conference title implication games in November.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was over in Colorado, they played the 10 o'clock game, right? And then I'm flying out the next morning, and then they have ASU at Kansas State. You need big games in November. That's the important part when it really highlights it. And I thought if they could do what they did last year and continue to have that, I think they're in a good spot. You know, the Devils lost 2 conference games, right? Well, one of them, Levitt didn't play, and it's on the road. I get
Surprise.
it. Yeah, right. And
we're going to play a road game without our starting quarterback. How do you think that'll go?
Yeah, and so the other loss was at Texas Tech, so they really didn't have a bad loss. Don't have a loss to Oklahoma State when Oklahoma State's going through their worst season ever, probably, and they didn't. You know, so do that type of thing, and have Utah. I think Utah is still the premier name program in the conference.
They got a big game with UCLA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And eyes are going to be on that game.
It's going to be primetime on Fox.
With Nico transferring over there. Yeah, 8 o'clock at night. It'll be 11 o'clock back east.
That sucks.
Yeah. But, yeah, go win that game. Yeah.
That opening weekend, there's multiple chances for the league to make a mark. Utah's playing UCLA. The Monday night game is TCU North Carolina with Belichick. Everybody's going to be watching that, right?
Eyes, yeah.
What's Dion going to do at Colorado after sending 2 elite guys, Heisman Trophy winner, to the NFL? Well, they got Georgia Tech, which is primetime Friday, and Baylor and Auburn. So across the board, what is that? 2 ACC opponents, an SEC, and a Big Ten.
And those games, at least right now, I would think are all winnable.
Also Cincinnati, Nebraska. So there's another Big Ten team you can beat. So there's 5 games against power teams on the opening weekend.
And then,
you got to clean up on the other games, but
BYU's got to beat Portland State.
Clearly.
Hey, the last time they played them,
they've got to.
It was the canary in the coal mine.
BYU's got to go 3-0.
Hillstead has got to have a big
Stanford and Wyoming,
game.
right?
Hillstead's got to have a big game. I'll see what you did there.
Okay, that's a topic for next week. Don't get ahead of yourself. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. The commish coming up in about 12 minutes right here on The Zone. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Remember, you have a chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win tickets to Aerofest with Styx, Kevin Cronin, former lead singer of REO Speedwagon, and Don Felder, formerly of the Eagles. June 11th, Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Tickets are on sale now at livenation.com. Listen to The Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win.
Those are 70s rockers.
That's true. There it is.
Joe Walsh had a line. It's better to be in your 20s in the 70s than to be in the 70s in the 20s.
Yep, there it is. I get why he would have enjoyed the 70s more than he's enjoying this time right now. That was autobiographical.
But I bet you they appreciate it to be able to be in your 70s and still do what you love to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people are willing to pay to come see it.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
And some things have changed for the better. I mean, residencies weren't a thing in music in the 70s, and now they are. You can go set up, camp out somewhere, and have people come to you. Billy Joel did Madison Square Garden. Tons of people do Vegas.
I'm going next week to see Kenneth Chesney.
Somebody in San Diego or L.A. should have a good idea and line that up. They could do it in Arizona. You've convinced me on that. I mean, I don't know why I was thinking about that yesterday, but you were talking about how you go golf in St. George in the winter, or you go golf in Phoenix when you go down to see your family in the winter, and you're always connected with people from Canada. They get in the depths of the winter, and they're looking to get out. In Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Vancouver, wherever, hitting the road. Escape. It's go time.
Faux show.
I can think of a few worse things than being a musician who had a residency in Phoenix and did 10 shows in the Suns arena around Suns games throughout the month of January. There'd be worse things. And knowing I can draw from all over here. You can fly into Phoenix from anywhere.
That's true.
All right, we're waiting on the Big 12 commish. What will Brett Yormark have to say? He is scheduled to speak at the Big 12 meetings in Orlando momentarily in the next 5 minutes or so. What do you want to hear from him? You want to hear him go aggressive, pick up the Big 12 flag and start waving it?
Yeah, I mean, he's a salesman at heart.
That's clear from the quotes he's dropped.
So sell the conference as much as you can. It's needed now more than ever. Promote its greatness, what works for you. I would be hesitant to go, and I have nothing against these other sports, but you've got to be great in the two main sports. And I think they got that down in basketball. But promote what's football and promote how you believe, okay, if we go this 5-11 model, and we can get 3 teams in there, and we can compete, not just get there, but compete. Because you get there and get smoked.
What good did that do?
It doesn't really do anything. In fact, it could set you back. It's interesting. There's never been a team that was considered winning the title since BYU in '84 that wasn't in the power ones.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, we're not going to let that happen again. Bo Diddley Tech and all that stuff that was going on at that time. So promote what is good. I mean, you have a lot going for you. And I'm biased. I want to see the conference do well. Our schools are in it. My school's in it. And,
if they're going from 12 to 16, it changes it. Last year the Big 12 only got 1 team in, but if it had been a 16-team playoff last year, BYU's sitting at 13. Iowa State's right there as well. So why not?
Oh, I think they would have. Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that.
Now, then that's the final rankings. They were 17 and 18, so maybe they would have gotten in. I just backed up the rankings one week.
Yeah, but you had, of all those teams, like there was one what you would consider a bad loss. Kansas at home, BYU.
Mm-hmm. But they just didn't believe.
So that was like the only one you had to explain away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody else had anything you had to explain away.
But nonetheless, you get nosed out by Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina and
but
Miami.
I don't know about that.
I don't either. I can look at the rankings and say, well, they were the next 4 teams. They would have taken them. But there was no pressure when they're ranking and no politics. And you want to think, politics wouldn't be a part of this. Except they are. Do they really want to put six SEC teams into a 16-team tournament?
Right, because they had bad losses. And that was the thing. Who was saying that? Was it
me?
No, it was Sankey.
When he said,
losses count more. Well, you want to eliminate losses. If you have a bad loss and then you beat Georgia, you want 90% of the emphasis to be on winning Georgia and ignore well, you can't. You can't ignore this over here. If you have a bad loss, I don't see why that doesn't count just as much or nearly just as much as a great win.
Well, and especially when, nobody wants to hear from them. Well, you get worn down. You get worn down over 8 games. Everybody else is playing 9, and you're scheduling these
and you put in Mercer in November.
Right, the mini bye
before the big game.
With the Mercers and the Furmans and the Citadel and whoever else.
Right, so, and
nobody wants to hear about you getting ground down.
And the leading analyst, Herb Street, has ragged on that for years.
And that's ESPN lighting up the SEC, who have the business relationship with, and that always, justifiably, rightly so, gets called into question. But it carries more weight to me when you criticize your own.
And it's an obvious criticism. It's not like it's outrageous, and you're not going out on some deep ledge there where few stand to even dare to stand.
It's
obvious.
To be addressed.
It's crap at a time when college football is huge because we're getting down to the end, whereas football still has 5, 6, 7 games to go. I mean, the NFL, I should say, has a good while to go. You are 2 weeks, 3 weeks away from deciding everything.
Mm-hmm. They catch breaks, and this year it'll be interesting to see what Ohio State does because they're supposed to contend every year. And the Big Ten gave them at Illinois and at Wisconsin on back-to-back weeks. Now, teams go up and down, and we'll see how good they are. Wisconsin was down last year. But that has a possibility to be a difficult back-to-back. Right. But they weren't last year. They're 5-7. Right, but that's the kind of thing the SEC doesn't have to do because they schedule so carefully.
Right. Yeah. Or then you turn around and you schedule so carefully. And you drop it to 8.
Well, fortunately, they haven't done that yet. And then they get pressure from the networks like, your big teams aren't playing each other. What are we paying you for? I do keep waiting for that. For the weight of ESPN telling the SEC, we need more big TV games.
That seems like we complain about there's no universal rules in the way there is at the pro level. Well, that seems like an easy one to amend.
It does. And it seems like you'd have the weight of the TV networks writing the checks behind you. So do it. But they don't because it's an advantage, and they know it, and they don't want to give it up. They know it.
Well, that's where we
Sankey doesn't want to get up and say it.
That's where we need Yormark to say it.
We do.
This is every conference for itself.
Clearly.
And you're getting paid millions to advocate. So advocate.
If you don't advocate, you can end up like Klavkov out of a gig. So advocate.
Yes.
It's like you're at risk as much as everybody else.
And there's so many, there's at least a few anyway, of obvious advocations that you're not out on a big limb on. And, I'm a little hesitant to go good for the game if it's not good for your conference. Well, I don't think Yormark's charge is to do what's good for the game ahead of your conference. If you cut the best deal you can cut, that's another story. And that's what I think they're doing with the 5 and 11.
The only one that really, I don't think when you're running the 3rd, 4th, or 5th best league that you have the pull to do what's best for the good of the game.
No, you don't, but don't admit it.
That's a question for, you don't have to admit it. That's a question for the SEC and Big Ten. Like, guys, are you really doing what's best for the good of the game? I mean, you get to steer the ship because you're the biggest and baddest.
So if you're going to do that, and he said that, he said we're going to 5-11, which good for the game. And then Sankey comes out on, was it Monday or Tuesday? Or Tuesday, I guess. Maybe it's Monday, even late Memorial Day, and says, I don't want to be lectured about what's good for the game. Well, why the hell not? Why can't... If you feel that, and your university presidents and your ADs all feel that that's something you need to push it. I don't care if you like it, Greg. We're not compadres here. I'm not being treated at an equal level.
And no one should treat him that way. I mean, he was all buddy on committees making plans for the good of the game, while he was also planning to steal Oklahoma in Texas.
I hate him.
It is every commissioner for himself. You hate him.
I do. I now hate him. And you know what's funny?
I hate him is the new he hate me.
I think Greg Sankey looks like Yock's father.
A little bit. Yeah, you got some Nate to him.
Every time I see a picture of him, I think of your father.
If my dad's wearing his glasses,
exactly,
there's resemblance, no doubt.
Yeah.
Have you called your dad on this?
I do need to call him on it.
Yeah, call him on it. His reaction.
When I see his picture,
Dad, I've never seen you and the Big 12 commissioner in the same place at the same time.
SEC.
Do you have a double?
SEC.
Excuse me, SEC. Do you have a double life?
Kind of. They look alike there.
Dad, you've been traveling a lot lately. Do you have a double life?
Are you running the biggest conference out there?
Hit him with that first. Dad, do you have a double life? That'll totally shock him. And they're like, I've never seen you and the SEC commissioner in the same room at the same time.
Jump in immediately.
No, prime her. You're totally running a game on your dad at this point. We shouldn't be planning this on the radio. He might be listening. He'll be wise to the whole deal. The game's up already.
I don't think that they need to be bitter enemies, but gosh, man, if I had $1 for every time my mother said you got to look out for number one.
Well, and especially when the SEC's done what they've done.
They're looking out for number one.
They're looking out for number one. They've rated multiple conferences on the way from 10 teams to 16.
Yeah, I had the 10 Commandments growing up, but they weren't what you think. They were my mother's commandments.
Oh, that's a whole segment. Ma Kinahan's 10 Commandments. All right, we're going to take a break while we wait for the Big 12 to start soon, hopefully. Brett Yormark, maybe, on the other side. Stay with us.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what are you doing?
Well, now, It's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
Cheap bang.
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. 9 a.m. Slacker Radio headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. 801-899-7600 or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com.
What's the story?
So here's the deal. Lloyd calls us, hey, the commission's going to talk at 9:15. I know you got stuff set up. You really ought to carry it. Yock pivots, moves guests. Well, we'll do the spring football tour with Iowa State next week. I had something else lined up. We'll do it next week. That'll still be a thing next week. It'll be fine. And just in case the commissioner walks up in 3 minutes, he was supposed to talk at 9:15. Now it's 9:26.
That really bugs me when they do that.
I know. What are we doing here?
What makes you think your time is more important
than everybody else's?
Yeah.
And do you realize, and maybe they don't, do you realize that people are really waiting to carry this live? Like, this is important to people.
I don't think they think that. I don't think they realize that.
Well, they need to be told.
And they need to cater to this market because I guarantee you they're not doing this in Phoenix. I guarantee it.
I totally believe you. Nor is TCU and Dallas. They're not doing it. But in Salt Lake, we're doing it.
This is the biggest thing we got right now. If the Jazz were in the playoffs, that'd be another story.
Maybe because of Iowa State or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
Well, we got 2 teams.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. And
it's a big deal. It's important. People are invested.
I'm telling you, Brett, don't get on my wrong side. Slavkov did that, and you saw what happened.
You know, there are a lot of...
You know my last name?
There are a lot of national writers who now understand what happens if you get Utah or BYU fans riled up. But Yormark is about to hit the daily double here and have them both riled up. Like, what are you doing, dude?
That's what I love about Whittingham. Starts at 11, begins at 11. 11:02, he apologizes.
He does apologize at 11:02, but it usually starts at 10:59. I mean, he's so precise.
Well, but he comes in, he
phone.
makes a couple of chit-chats.
That's what 10:58 is for.
Yeah, the guy is so freaking punctual.
Like clockwork.
Yeah.
Swiss trains.
Well, I mean, you've got to value other people's time.
Mm-hmm.
Bronco Mendenhall is the same exact way.
Keeps everything going on time.
Yeah. He once told me, I like talking to you because if you say you need 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes, not 25, 30, because I got stuff to do. And you told me 10, and now we're 25, 30. And I remember he said that to me once, and anytime I ever talked to him away from the group interview, is like, if I say, and that's why he would say sure every time I asked him. Because I'd just keep it. And this is a freaking joke, and it bugs me.
I thought it was weird they were starting it at 9:15, and now they're not starting at 9:15. Say 9:30. All right, well, here's the other stuff we talked about during the show. The Knicks brought their A game. The Pacers brought their, C- D+ game. So the Knicks win by 20. Pacers made a couple runs. They got within 7. They got within 12. Did you ever feel like the Pacers are going to win that game? I thought the Knicks got control of it.
From the second half on, though.
Took control of it, and that was it.
Which is about the only time that I ever
really think that.
Unless there's a 30, 40-point lead, which is rare.
Game 6 tomorrow night. It's now 3-2. The Knicks 2 stars showed up. I thought Brunson had a solid game. Towns, is he going to play? He's hurt. He had a really good game. The bench came together. They put together a nice run when they came into the game. That was an all-around deal. Now, role players play better at home. We know that cliche and all that. And the home court advantage has not been a big deal in the first 4 games of the series, but when you get deep in series, it has still mattered. We'll see if it matters for the Pacers Saturday night.
I think that's incidental. I think the team who plays better will win. Will
the Pacers play better, because they're home?
and no, not because they're home, because they play better.
Do you think they took one off?
Yeah.
And do you think now human nature says, hey, we got to buckle down. We can't, this away.
I think they realized the Knicks were on one, man, and that happens. There's not a huge separation between these teams.
And so if I'm Indiana, I don't beat myself up over it.
Watching these teams come up short in the games they lose makes me wonder, like, can either one of these teams stand up to Oklahoma City, or are we looking like a 5-game NBA final? I would never pick a 4-game sweep, but are we looking at a 4 or 5-game series, a short one here?
Possibly, but we'll see.
Yeah.
If you can't win a game where you're supposed to play, then something's wrong here. Just because where you're supposed to win it. It's like we made a big deal of Houston, and then what happened? The Warriors went down there and won Game 7. Yeah. So if I'm Indiana, you lost the game. You're not markedly better than these guys to beat them in 5. And tip your hat to the Knicks. Now go make sure they don't do it again. And if they should do it again, well, then go win Game 7.
Well, you got no options at that point. You better.
Yeah.
I thought it was weird that, and this maybe goes to the point that he is a star, but he's not a superstar. He's a really good player, but he's not a great player. But in a game that big, with that much on the line, for Tyrese Halliburton to go for 8 points on 2 of 7 shooting, he only took 7 shots in 32 minutes. That's not enough.
That's where I kind of felt they packed it in. It's not our night. Let's not go crazy.
Okay, well, Siakam took 13, and he may have thought the same thing. I'm like, I want more. And I get it. At some point, you wave the white flag and you say, okay.
Thibodeau was Mr. Defense here, so design
no, he's just
plans.
taking away all the shots?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Halliburton is that level of a player where he's going to just dominate every game.
No, he's not going to.
He's a nice player, and he deserves all-star recognition. I get all that, sure. And maybe he can develop into that. He's still very young. How old is he? 24?
He is. He turned 25 in the middle of the season. He's 24 when it started.
Okay,
so if he's still a year or two away from his prime, he should still be improving for at least the next 2 to 3 years.
I would think, but I'm not
Especially
willing to anoint him.
Games.
Exactly, he hasn't
in the
been
playoffs.
in them. I'm not going to anoint him Caitlin Clark status just yet.
Okay, that's good. That's good that you do that.
Right.
Draw a line in the sand.
Well, 2 Indiana great basketball players.
For Halliburton, he's now, it looks like, about 30 games deep into his playoff career. So more to learn in these situations.
Yeah. If I'm Indiana, man, I'm just as confident. But if I'm New York, I'm confident too. Then that's, as a consumer and a fan, that's precisely what I want. I want both teams believing that they can win and then see what happens on Saturday night. And I'm hoping the Knicks win because I want a 7th game.
Otherwise, are we just going to end up with some long week layoff and the thing doesn't start till next Thursday anyway, and we don't have a game Monday? We don't have anything between Saturday and Thursday?
That very well could be. And for just sports fandom's sake.
More games. Good.
Yeah.
Fewer games. Bad.
Game 7 in a conference final, that's pretty much as good as it gets at that level, at that point in the postseason.
That would be
dramatic,
and that's what we're here for.
And if I'm the league, I make sure I don't have any questionable referee calls, but I get it that they would want New York in there.
Arizona State football coach Kenny Dillingham, who showed up on time, I might add, at 3 o'clock yesterday.
Oh, Dillingham? He's always on time. That's another one, too.
That thing was, I clicked on that Zoom and recorded that, and there it was.
That's another,
boom.
Yeah, absolutely. He makes a point of that.
It wasn't just him. He was with a trio.
Yeah, Leipold.
It was Leipold, the
Kansas
coach. And he does have a sense of humor. You were just talking about how you've seen him in multiple press conferences. And Dillingham, I can't remember Dillingham had a couple lines in there, but one of them, Leipold, was like, that's funny. He just has a little laugh. Dillingham, the news he made, he was asked about, you've gone from undergrad to favorites. He's like, yeah, I don't like it. I'm uncomfortable with it. I'd rather have the chip on the shoulder. Nobody believes in me. It's easier to
He didn't play
motivate.
high school football. He didn't play college football.
Mm-hmm. And look where he got.
Yeah.
He's a head coach at ASU, and they're in the playoff.
He got injured in high school, so he wasn't able to play.
Yep.
And he shows up and says, can I hang around? Who?
Oh, right. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, whatever.
And Norvell, who's now the Florida State coach, who was OC, says, yeah. And goes from there. It's great American story.
Outrageous.
That he's been able to achieve.
Sports recreates itself every generation. So from the previous generation, who is he?
I don't know.
Mike Leach. Didn't play college football. Finds his way into a profession where you usually have to play.
I don't know how Mike got in.
I don't know that, but
I know he hung around BYU.
I know the stories about him going to BYU games and basically figuring out their offense. Now, you're right. There's some transition there, and I don't know it. But nonetheless, didn't play college football, ended up a head coach, which is a very unusual path, and ends up as a guy recognized as this guy's on the cutting edge of offense in college football.
Yeah, I can get a more current one, Jed Fish.
Okay. Nice.
He played tennis in high school.
Oh, did he?
Now, Fish went to the same high school as my sister.
Uh-huh.
So, and I'm bugged that they left because I was developing a relationship with him.
And now he's in the Big Ten, and that didn't do you any good.
No, and he remembered me from year to year. I talked to him on the phone, told him about all this, and North Jersey guys just connect. I don't know what to tell you. They just do. And
Well, the media member who went to the same high school as your.
Yeah, right. And we
that resonates when you can
sort of walk the same path.
Right, when you can draw a parallel with somebody.
Yeah.
Back to high school, it gets their attention.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a soccer guy in town.
Pablo Mastrani.
But that's me, my strange background moving to 4 different states.
But it works. I mean, if there were 2 people who went to high school in North Dakota, it works.
Yeah,
I've interviewed 2 people who were in the same league as high school I went to, Valhalla, and they would both remember. Both mock me for
that
it.
Dillingham's talking about, I like being the underdog. But
yeah, I just thought that it was interesting that he was just so upfront about it.
Yeah, but he can only spin that hopefully for him once.
To that degree, certainly, because that was a weird story to be picked 16th and finish first. But inevitably, if you do this long enough, you're going to have teams.
Oh, so you're picked second by 1 vote?
Well, no.
We're the underdog. Nobody believes in us?
Well, he might do that. I can't rule that out.
That's
but
weak.
I meant more you could be picked 6th or 7th.
And there'll be a time that will happen.
Right. So he may have that to spin again. He's not going to be picked first
But
every
not
year.
to this level.
He's not going to be picked 16th again.
Right.
He's got... when you get to that bottom tier, just the fact that you have that coach and that name, they're only going to pick you so low.
Right. And so now it's go time for them. You had a great season. Way to go, but big deal.
Did they talk at 9:15 Eastern, Yak? What do you think?
No, the release says 11:15 a.m. Eastern time.
Okay. They're not going to be that dumb on the side of the room there. I think he can figure that out.
Is it on Netflix instead of YouTube?
I work in time zones every single day, trust me.
And you've got the right Zoom link.
I believe in you.
Oh, yeah. Though there are more than 50 people waiting on this call currently.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people lined up.
We're talking Wall Street Journal, On3 Sports, Sports Illustrated. There are people from all over.
Nice. All right, we can take another
National
break.
Geographic.
The
Geographic.
commissioner will probably come out and speak during Jake and Ben's show.
Well, good. As long as he's doing it while I'm riding home.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
Well, traditionally, this is when we do your feedback, but what if we do speculation today? Why is the commissioner now half an hour late? This is beyond running late, PK. Something's up. Half an hour?
Well, I think that it's because Ohio State, SC, Penn State, and Michigan want to join.
See, that's what I'm getting at. Something's going on. And I was going to say, speculation. What is it?
We're negotiating. Certainly, we're not going to give them 100% full share. Started like 25, 50, 75.
You're Ohio State. What do you bring to the table?
Right. Yeah. I don't need you.
What are we going to do with this 20-team league?
Yeah, so they're in deep negotiations. Yeah, he better have a good reason. Not he's combing his hair or having a latte. Because when I have my lattes, I drink them very fast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Gulp them right down, huh?
Yeah. I got places to go, things to do here, man.
I don't think you drink lattes. Yak, do you think he drinks lattes? Is he playing radio right now?
You're playing radio.
Yeah, playing radio.
The fetch I don't.
Lattes don't really fit the ethos of what we know PK to be.
Well, when the day's over and I'm relaxing, having a smoke.
After you've hit the bench.
You had family members who smoked, and you had family members who didn't, and you told me what you preferred.
Yes. My older sister smoked for years, but my other sister, she moved out of the house when I was young, but my other sister, who's only like 2 years younger, had a major influence on me and just demanded that I never do that. And at that age, I just, whatever she said, she told me, you're going to NAU. Okay.
You're not smoking. Okay.
Yeah. And even today, if she gets in my face, I just kind of back off. All right.
Question of the morning, Brett Yormark endorsing the 5-11 playoff format. And now, as I get ready to read the question of the day, he's sitting down.
Appreciate you all being here. It's hard to believe I'm wrapping up my third season as commissioner. It's been a great first 3 years. I'd like to thank our board, our ADs, student athletes, and administrators for their incredible support. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize President Livingstone. As her 2 years of work here wrap up, she's been an incredible partner, and I look forward to working with Doug Gerard, President Gerard, who's our incoming chair. It was a strong year for the Big 12. We saw national championships in 4 Olympic sports, finals appearances for men's basketball, gymnastics, and tennis, and a heck of a game in the CFP quarterfinals. We had 3 great days of meetings here in Orlando. Our men's basketball coaches were here, ADs, board members, SWAs, FARs, as well as many student athletes. Additionally, I want to thank Charlie Baker and our many media, commercial, and bowl partners that also made the trip here to Orlando. This upcoming football season will kick off our new 6-year TV deal with Fox and ESPN, and their licensed partners, CBS, TNT, and NBC. Throughout the week, we spent a lot of time discussing settlement, CFP, new governance models, and the business of the Big 12. On the CFP format, I want to reiterate our preference for a 5-11 format. It's fair and it rewards performance. We will distribute this year $558 million to our member institutions, which is a record high. We see real potential and growth opportunity for the business of the Big 12. In the area of the commercial partnerships and sponsorships, we see real upside. I'm incredibly bullish on the future of the Big 12. As we head into this new chapter in our industry, we will be at the forefront of innovation, and we're going to continue to positively disrupt while competing for championships at the highest levels. Before we get into questions, I'd like President Livingstone to add some comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Well, it's certainly been a privilege to be the chair of the board of the conference for the last couple of years. It's been an interesting and very busy and dramatically changing 2 years in athletics. So it's been a privilege to be a part of the conference and to help lead as chair of the board. And Chancellor Gerard will be fabulous to work with. So we all look forward to his leadership. Certainly want to thank Brett for his continued leadership of the conference and his aggressive approach to who we are in the conference and helping build our brand and the quality of what we're doing. As you know, we extended his contract recently just as a signal of support for what he's doing and our confidence in him leading us forward in this ever-changing landscape of college athletics. As Brett said, we had a really positive several days of meetings, probably one of the most collaborative and integrated meetings that we've had. And obviously lots of really significant issues that we were talking about, whether it's the House settlement or the CFP, or we had President Baker with us talking about the options for restructuring Division I decision-making. So probably one of the more substantive meetings that we've had on issues that are really critical to the long-term success of our conference, but also to college athletics. So great collaboration among presidents and chancellors. We've got a really good sense of the room and a really deep commitment to the conference and to our success going forward. So I'll stop there and we're happy to take questions.
Absolutely. Those in the room, go ahead first. Whoever wants to kick it off, feel free.
Right, on the 5+11, which obviously you all have put forward, I know the ACC is in support of that. with the SEC and Big Ten seemingly in charge of what direction this is going to go, what can you and the ACC, maybe some of the other conferences who are in support, do to try and push 5+11 through to the finish line?
Well, we're pushing 5 and 11. We have all week. I was also glad to hear that the SEC coaches supported, that format, which is critically important. We've had great collaboration with our colleagues. As all of you know, I'm on the management committee for the CFP. The four Power Four commissioners have been meeting separately, vetting out different models and opportunities. When we were recently in Charlotte, we formally presented the Big Ten and the SEC with options that one, we had a preference for, but also if we did end up going with an AQ model, which is not our preference, how we felt about that. We will look forward to continue dialogue with them. I'm sure we'll connect next week, and then we'll be together in person in a couple of weeks. But I think there's real momentum for 5-11. Certainly the public is voting yes for it, which I think is critically important, and it's a very good sign. And yes, the Big Ten, the SEC are leading the discussions, but with leading those discussions, they have a great responsibility that goes with it to do what's right for college football and not to do anything that just benefits two conferences. And I have a lot of faith in the process, and I think we'll land in the right place.
Within that 5-11 format, do you want a bracket that's 1 versus 16, just a straight 16?
We would go straight 16, no different than what we just recently approved, 1 through 12.
Why do you have pushback on a model that guarantees the Big 12 2 spots?
That's a great question. In talking to our ADs and coaches, we want to earn it on the field. The 5-11 might not be ideal for the conference, but it's good for college football, and it's what's fair. And we don't want any gimmies. We want to earn it on the field, and that was the direction of the key stakeholder group, the ADs and the coaches, and I feel very comfortable with that. And I feel the same way, and I've been very outspoken about it.
What was your response or reaction when Greg Sankey seemingly took a shot at your statement and Jim Phillips' statement about wanting to do what's in the best interest of the game when it came to the seating change?
I agreed with Greg's follow-up statement that I'd be entertained by it, and I was. And we all have thick skin here. The neat thing about our relationship amongst the commissioners is we're going to battle. That's part of life. We're going to agree to disagree. We're kind of in that mode right now. But I have a lot of respect for my peers, and I know they have a lot of respect for me and Jim, and we'll end up in the right place.
What created that collaborative, integrative meetings this week with now not having on board new members? How helpful was that to having that collaborative effort in these meetings this week?
Well, first, as you guys all know, we've integrated 8 new partners, schools in the last 2 years. That's been a big undertaking. And I think we've done it very successfully. This is the first real spring business meeting where we brought all the key stakeholders together. It's been typically somewhat bifurcated. The football coaches did their own, basketball coaches, and then the administrators. We felt it was critically important and very much on strategy to bring everyone together so we can collaborate and have some thoughtful conversation. It was very successful, as Linda said, and we engaged and we focused on the things that matter most. Obviously, there's a lot out there right now that we need to be focused on, and we were laser focused in our meetings, and I think we made great progress.
Was anything up for a vote today with the board?
Well, nothing material other than just the day-to-day stuff.
The other thing I would say in terms of the collaboration, I think one of the things we did with the first 4 we brought in and then the next 4 we brought in, we had them start meeting with us in the year before they actually joined the conference. And so they were in all our meetings. They, of course, couldn't vote on anything officially until they officially started. And so really, the Four Corners schools have really been with the conference almost 2 years in terms of meetings, and then the first 4 before that for a year beyond that. And so I think that really has helped so that this wasn't really the first year we all worked together. They were involved, they were engaged even before they officially joined the conference. And I think that was a smart decision on the part of the conference in both of those transitions that has made it much, much smoother and helped to make this year a very collaborative year.
The football coaches have said they're united on one portal window. What would be the next steps for you to the Big 12 on that topic?
Well, we discussed the portal window with the coaches. We know what their preference is. We'll discuss that amongst the Power Four commissioners here shortly. but I advocate for their position. They want a January portal, and we'll discuss that again with our peers and see where we can land this thing.
Right, you've mentioned this, I think it was in the last football media days last year, that the possibility of private equity funding maybe going for the conference. And I think you mentioned something earlier this week about it. What has been that thought on the idea of having that influx or not having that influx from the conference?
Well, I gave a statement yesterday. We certainly went through the exercise, as we should, doing our due diligence, and it was very appropriate. At this point in time, we're putting it on pause. We understand what's out there at the capital markets. We know it very well. Our model was, though, very different. It was more of a bespoke model, custom tailored to the potential needs of the conference, getting some strategic expertise and areas to grow the conference, but at the same time, potentially having a capital resource. But at this point in time, we decided to press pause. There's a lot of things going on, as we all know, in the industry that we need to focus on.
What is ESPN and Fox going to do to increase visibility in marquee television windows with this new 6-year media rights? What changes in terms of the inventory window?
Great question. We have great media partners, obviously with ESPN and Fox, and then they've sub-licensed some of our content to TNT, CBS, and NBC. So really in our family now, we have 5 of the biggest distribution partners that exist in collegiate sports. Which gives us an advantage to elevate and amplify our brand, to do more storytelling. When you think about the windows and being on broadcast television, because right now that's the widest reaching platform to be on. In our first 3 weeks, 11 of the games from Fox, 9 are on Big Fox. We're also featured on ESPN1 quite a bit in those first 3 weeks. So I'm very confident that our TV partners will continue to put us in the right TV windows. So we can elevate and amplify what we do and tell the great stories around our student athletes and our conference. That being said, you've seen that we're moving a couple of games more so than we have in the past to Friday nights because there's clear air there. Got a couple of games on Thursday nights, and we will continue to work with the board and the ADs on whether there are other windows that we can exploit with our TV partners. They're not just disruptive to our campuses, but enhance, the viewership opportunities for our school.
Well, speaking of publicity, the Dublin game, Kansas State, Iowa State, the last 2 Pop-Tarts bowlers, by the way, local plug. Getting the brand international, how key is that?
Listen, I like the international narrative that we can create from a conference perspective. We'll be in Ireland this summer or this August, and then we repeat that visit in the summer of 26, which we're really excited about. In addition, our women's basketball team, I think it's Baylor, in fact, will be in Paris, and we're also going to play a baseball game in Mexico City. So we are taking our product and our content internationally. Basketball certainly is a global sport. There's more recruitment there for student athletes than ever before. So we think having a voice in the international marketplace is critically important.
Let's take some Zoom questions real quick. Ben, let's start with Chris Vanini from The Athletic, followed by Ben Pornoy from SBJ.
Yes, for Linda, on the governance, obviously the P4 are looking for potentially 65% or more. There's been some pushback from others. Why is it important that the Power Four have that much power, and are you concerned about any of the frustration elsewhere?
We've had really good discussions in the Division I task force about all aspects of that model. It's complicated going from a really complex model to a much simpler model, and clearly the voting percentages have been an important part of that conversation. I think we've had really open, honest discussions about it on the task force from folks both in the power conferences as well as those outside. And I think there's a recognition by many, certainly not by all, as you know, that the power conferences drive a lot of the viewership, a lot of the revenue. And so in that regard, there's probably a place for them having heavier weighting. We currently have heavier weighting in voting in the NCAA as the structure is now. This would just strengthen that some. It certainly doesn't give those conferences complete autonomy over everything that happens and requires collaboration and partnership. So I think it helps sort of recognize the role those conferences play across the NCAA while also giving voice to others in the process. So we'll see where we get to on it. We've got meetings coming up in the next couple of weeks, but I would say so far it's been a really collaborative and open discussion. I think we'll continue to see that as we refine what that ultimately looks like in the next few weeks.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Hey, Brad and Linda. Sort of similar to what Chris was asking, but to that point, I guess maybe Brad, Linda, you kind of answered this, but I guess Brad, when you look at sort of this governance structure and model, I guess what is kind of the impetus for it? And I guess can you walk me through a little bit of kind of, I guess, for the Big 12 and as the Power Four, kind of what you guys would like to see out of this sort of reshuffling of this?
I think generally speaking, and I do speak on behalf of my colleagues, there is an appetite and a desire to have a little bit more autonomy, a little bit more control in decision making. In what's currently being discussed, I think we will land in a very desirable place. We understand the importance of being part of the institution and also being very collegial with our peers. But at the same time, we do feel that when it comes to control and autonomy, that there needs to be a little bit of a shift to the A4, at least more so than it currently exists. And those are the conversations that we're having right now.
The other thing I would say about the structure we're working on is to make it much flatter and hopefully much more efficient. So one of the biggest criticisms of the decision-making processes in the NCAA is how convoluted and complex and how long they take. And so that's also part of the intent here, is to make it a much flatter structure, a cleaner structure, get rid of a lot of committees so that we can make decisions much, much more quickly. And in the world we live in where things change regularly, we've got to be much more efficient about how we make decisions.
And Ben, I'll just also add that, Charlie Baker has been terrific throughout the process. He has listened to all the key stakeholder groups, but he does recognize that not everyone looks the same, operates the same, and there needs to be a bit of an adjustment and a modernization of what's being done there. The NCAA on a whole, as I said, but also as it relates to the Power Four.
Thank you.
We'll go to Jordan Mendoza from USA Today. Jordan, you're up.
Hey, I know you guys have kind of alluded to the fact that there seems to be a lot of momentum going on with the 5+11 model. I wanted to ask, do you feel like where's the progress headed towards getting a united front on that? And what do you think it's going to take to make sure that there is a united front to where everyone's agreeing on it, and by 2026, like this is the model that's going to be in place?
Well, I think it's still a work in progress. We do not need to notify ESPN, our media partner, about format change until December. So effectively, we have now till then to vet through the concerns, the issues of any new format. There are some conferences that have some nuances around that date, other decisions that have to be made in advance of it. But the reality is we have some time now to work through the process. And it is a process. But I do anticipate something getting done sooner than later.
Bruce from the Arizona Daily Star. Bruce, if you can hear me, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, when you guys said you're talking about the House settlement, if it goes through as it's proposed now, I mean, are there guidelines or anything you guys are talking about as a conference as far as guidance or getting everyone on the same page as far as maybe everyone having the similar revenue shares for each sport, or the way you handle NIL? Is there anything kind of conference wide the way you're looking at it?
Well, all I can tell you is that alongside the Power Four conferences, this has been a work in progress in getting prepared for hopeful approval of settlement for the last 12 months. There is an implementation committee that's really rolling up their sleeves to make sure that we are ready and prepared for this next new chapter. I feel really confident about where we're going and how prepared we are. In fact, as part of our meetings this week, we had the folks from Deloitte, who obviously will be overseeing the clearinghouse. We had the folks from LBI, who will be overseeing cap management. We had a multitude of conversations around being ready for settlement and what does that mean in the next steps. So I feel we're very prepared as a conference. But also, I speak for my colleagues in saying we're putting a lot of time and effort into this. It's not happening overnight. There's been a lot of due diligence, and I feel really good about where we are.
Great. We'll do one more person in question. Anyone in person have anything? Or I keep
with Deloitte's NIL Go that you noted, how confident are you, and maybe that they're going to be able to enforce these NIL deals, of course, tied to the outsourced NCAA, but just maybe the pulse of what coaches are concerned about with the NIL Go.
Well, the coaches all received a presentation from not only Deloitte, from LBI. So if they had questions and concerns, they were able to share those with both parties. I feel very confident. But what I've said to our coaches and our ADs and our board is it's progress over perfection. It's not going to be perfect. It just won't be. But there'll be significant progress. And I am very confident that the College Sports Commission, which is obviously going to be the new enforcement agency overseeing settlement, will execute at the highest levels. And they understand their responsibility. And you break those rules, the repercussions will be punitive.
There he was, Commissioner of the Big 12, Brett Yormark. When we come back, Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.